If you could repeat that, are we live?
We are now live.
Could we also text confirmation in the group? Just let me know if we're good to go. Okay, let's prepare to go live now. Everything has begun, so our first group of presenters are here. Okay, well, good morning. I'm the Executive Director of the Public Design Commission, and welcome to the first PDC meeting in the new year. If you're joining us via Zoom and would like to testify, please sign up through the Google form, which is also linked on our meeting agenda. Commissioners, a reminder to please bring the mic close to you when you speak so everybody can hear on Zoom. I'm going to hand it over to our chair, Deborah Martin.
Good morning. I'm Deborah Martin. I'm Chair at the Public Design Commission. Welcome to the Public Design Commission meeting. As New York City's design review agency, the Public Design Commission has jurisdiction over the design of permanent structures, landscape architecture, and the art proposed on or over city-owned property. Today's meeting is being held in person at City Hall. Members of the public can attend and give testimony either in person or remotely. The public meeting is now commencing with the consent agenda and items number 29865 to 29880. For item number 29866, please note the commission recommends approval of the architecture scope tabling the site design elements for further consideration. Please further note that Commissioner Van Bramer and Commissioner Miranda's recusal are recused from item 29869. Are there any other recusals to note? Okay, let the record show there are no additional recusals. I'll now call for the vote. Commissioners, when I call your name, please state your vote for the consent agenda. Kenseth Armstead.
Apologize, I'm recused from 29866 and but approve all else.
Okay, just noting that Commissioner Kenseth Armstead is also recused from item number 29866.
Yes.
66, okay. Okay. Isabel Castilla,
Approval.
Lori Hawkinson,
Approval.
Bill Heinzen,
Approval.
Karen Keel,
Approval.
Carrie Maloney,
Approval.
Manuel Miranda,
Approve all.
Merrill Tisch,
Approval.
Jimmy Van Bramer.
Approval.
And I also approve also let the record show that with the recusals previously noted, all are in favor and the consent agenda is approved. We'll now continue with the public hearing portion of the meeting. The first public hearing item is item number 29881, preliminary review of the installation of the Brooklyn Museum of Love and Wonder by Vanessa German at the Shirley Chisholm Recreation Center at 3002 Foster Avenue between Nostrand Avenue and New York Avenue, Brooklyn. Per standard procedure, applicants will give their presentation, then public testimony will be heard, and then the commission will ask questions, deliberate, and vote. We will hear in-person testimony first, followed by testimony from remote participants. We can now proceed with the presentation. Good morning. Welcome.
Museum of Love and Wonder. This is a tentative title, open to generation through the community. We'll talk about how that can happen. I'm going to go through this very quickly, looking at East Flatbush. Mark, what's up? I think the money. They don't have another one, and they don't know what they're missing.
Yeah, it's good. Does this ba 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 ba?
But
See.
yeah, this one's
That-
good.
I think that one has to be super close.
This one's good.
East Flatbush, largest Caribbean community outside of the West Indies. Place of deep pride, hard work, approved conceptual. Is this where I started? Approved conceptual design? Yes. Design revisions. This is where we're going to begin. So we are activating the Brooklyn Museum of Love and Wonder tentative title in the interior and exterior of the Shirley Chisholm Recreation Center. Thinking about recreation not as just something that your body does to sweat, but as something for your heart, your mind, and your soul. Thinking about this as a place where people come to move through and have engagement for their dimensional beings through an artist residency in the community. This is community engagement at the living level, at the place of the sidewalk, at the place of breath and hands in the community, generating inspiration for the artworks and actually generating artwork with their own hands also. In museum quality cabinets, conservation quality cabinets. So the artwork will go into the cabinets, should not ever need to come out of the cabinets, will not incur great temperature change in the cabinets or be exposed to a lot of sunlight. Artwork is focused on the power, the voices, the visions, and the dreams of people in the East Flatbush community. Brooklyn Museum of Love and Wonder tentative title, so hold that inside of you. How will the museum take shape? Through activations in the interior and exterior on every single floor, level, and even the roof of the Shirley Chisholm Recreation Center. These show you locations in the building where we will have our artwork activations and go into detail about those. So in the cellar level, we have lockers of wonder. Within a bank on the east side, you will come through and then find a vision, a wonder of artwork in a space that you would not necessarily expect it. In the lobby, we have a welcome gate, welcoming everyone from all places into the Shirley Chisholm Recreation Center, into the spirit of Caribbean heart and warmth and joy. These are the quilt cabinets, assemblage quilts. So we're looking at dimensional tapestries made by the hands of people in the community. In this corridor, we have second floor, this is a power figure, and it is a life-size power figure, and it is the cabinet that has full circular 360 exposure. It's 350 to 400 hand-blown glass vessels containing the words, visions, and dreams of people within the community. Corridor, spin corridor, we have a through-to-through cabinet. This cabinet is visible on the front and within the corridor, the cardio room on the other side. These are 24 semi-precious gemstone portraits of people from the community. We'll talk more about it in detail. Third floor cabinet of wonder. What's important to know is this space is not available to everyone because the children's room is beyond here. Mostly the people who will see this are children and the people who engage with children. This will be 3 to 5 objects. Look, y'all. We have things you can touch. This is so great. Okay, but I'm sorry, Zoom people, that you haven't been able to see that. So 3 to 5 objects of wonder that, again, are inspired by the voices, the lives, the stories, and the dreams of the community. Talk about that more in detail later. Children's Spirit House on the rooftop, only accessible to children, people who work with children, a place for solace, a place for dreaming, a place for a little tiny giggle. Outside, we have the elders benches, 2 elders benches with the hand tracings of the elders in the community. Outside, each bench has between 50 and 60 tracings of the hands of elders in the community. Signage and wayfinding. This is a comment from the first time that I presented. We will be creating a single sign for every single artwork, as well as an introduction to the to-be-named Brooklyn Museum of Love and Wonder. Each sign will be on copper and will have an individually designed framework that holds the spirit of love and wonder and vitality for each sign. These are some examples of the sign. Each artwork will have a custom shaped sign. So this is an example of I've Got Your Back, which is the title for the elders benches. And this just will show us some of the spaces where we'll have signs. So this will be the welcome sign. We will have small space for each sign near adjacent to the artworks lobby. Each sign for the quilt cabinet is important because we have two different community groups who are making these, and they are not only making the artworks with me, they also decide the theme and the spirit of the artwork. So we'll communicate that inside of all the signs. Inside of each sign will also be information about the community engagement. How many people did we communicate with? Did we have communication with in engagement, and over what duration of time? Cabinet of portraits will have a diagram. It will tell each portrait will not be named after a person in the community, but the superlative. So like the Busta Rhymes portrait won't say Busta Rhymes. It'll say the rapper, something like that. And Cabinet of Wonder, small sign, also a diagram sign, 3rd floor. Children's Spirit House sign will be on the exterior of the building, not inside the classroom. Shirley Chisholm's legacy, this just details me reaching out multiple times to the estate and finding ways to bring in Shirley Chisholm's spirit and vision into the project, which will be through a portrait of her, but we'll talk more about that. Oh, so this is our community engagement. I have had really exciting, invigorating, robust, and inspiring engagement in the community of East Flatbush since the fall of 2024. We had a disruption that could not be avoided, but when we kicked off, it was a lot of fun, learned a lot really quickly, have an ongoing permit with Parks to set up outside of Nostrand Playground. People love this playground. This playground could be an entire community center to itself, adjacent to the elementary school. So engaging with multiple generations of the public, and they are responding to prompts that help us develop and make artwork for the building. So you can see that there's an example of the cabinet of a rose quartz portrait. People can touch it, people can see the back, and they can also respond to the prompts for the neighborhood gate. They can respond to the prompts for the street scene. They can respond to the prompts for the dreaming vessel. And what's important about this is that people say what's special for themselves. Like, you live in this neighborhood, you walk around this neighborhood, what's sacred to you? What keeps you going? When you've had a hard day, do you walk through a cemetery? Yes, you do, because it's your place. It's a place that you love. And this, from this hand, will go into one of the hand-blown glass vessels for the dreaming vessel. And we're doing a lot of hand tracing in the street. Everybody wants their hand traced. I've traced the hands of 3-year-olds because they see somebody tracing the hand, everyone wants it. But we're going with people. Some people also don't want to be called elder, which is fine. So we're doing a lot of hand tracings. And it's really important to people. When we do hand tracings, people tell me what their job was. People tell me how long they worked in East Flatbush. They tell me when they came to this country, and they're so proud of their age. These are some of the responses that will go into Dreaming Vessel. This little boy stood at the table for 5 minutes and thought very carefully about what he was going to write on that piece of paper. So we're actually going to make a small power figure for him and for all the other children who want to be 13, 15, 20 and smart for the Cabinet of Wonder. So this is how these inspire artworks that will be created to become 13 and be smart inside of a vessel, but also inside the Cabinet of Wonder. And I will tell you, children have the most robust dreams. Most of the adults who responded to these really just wanted safety. I cannot tell you how many people were like, just peace and safety. So community responses for the portrait cabinet. It's really helpful to have an example of the scale of the portrait cabinet, let people touch it, let people see the gemstones, and tell me who's important to them in their neighborhood. Most of the people who responded to this, I have to say maybe 10 people said Sam the Ice Cream Man. And so Sam the Ice Cream Man will have a portrait, but his portrait will be called the greatest ice cream man in the world. And so design your own spirit house. So we have, for the spirit house, we'll be pulling part of an installation to create the pattern that will be powder coated for the children's spirit house. And And we learned very quickly on the ground at No Sharon Playground that you can't speak English all the time, y'all. You got to meet people where you got to be able to communicate with people. So we printed pamphlet in several different languages, which opened doors. Open doors, open hearts. Community engagement at the 100th birthday of the Shirley Chisholm Recreation Center. It's a really powerful time to be there. So those t-shirts, actually people in the community have these t-shirts now. And we created, I really needed to have gentle, generative, relationship building, like community engagement that would move into the neighborhood. So we made t-shirts where people can actually respond to the prompts that will create and actually go into some of these artworks. So we have a big redesign on this placard and comment box section that will go into businesses where people will have like its durational settings, barbershops, hair braiding salons, where we introduce the museum to people. They can have, there's a perforation on the card, they can put their response in here that will go to the Dreaming Vessel. But we're redesigning this now with some multiple choice titles for the museum, which I have come up with because we have a shorter amount of time to do this now. So we will redesign this with multiple choice. Like how would you like to name this museum? The East Flatbush People's Museum of Love and Wonder, the People's Museum of Love and Wonder, the East Flatbush People's Museum. So there will be multiple choice. We're basically crowdsourcing, voting, and then we'll actually redesign some t-shirts with multiple choice on those also. So in the community, doing community engagement for us. East Flatbush has a really robust business district. Y'all probably know that because I think I saw you at that jerk chicken place, right? All right, so each floor of this is just showing every level. There is an opportunity to walk through from the basketball court and be confronted by an artwork, be confronted by beauty. Lockers, cellar, where we're going very quickly.
It's just a class.
Y'all know every time a bell rings. So we have lockers, a Brooklyn street scene, ceramic and hand blown vase. But it's not just a street scene, it's a street scene of wonder. It's a street scene that invites poetry inside of it. I'm thinking of these as places to sort of stop, catch a breath, meditate upon a thing, slow down, get some stillness. Also, Brooklyn street scene, the New York State flower with insects, soil, and roots is the rose bush. Really important to East Flatbush because of the whole garden club, y'all. So showing you what we have, Bank of Lockers East Side. The neighborhood gate, wrought iron, really important, of course, because of the innovations in wrought iron in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, in Haiti. These are Black folks who really innovated this process. We know that it was stolen, which is a crime, but we're moving forward and honoring the fact that these people really set up this industry in a way. So we have a wrought iron gate. All of the flora and fauna is native, important, indigenous to this region. The center of the gate, this is my little rendering, will be a caged glass heart, which represents the Shirley Chisholm Recreation Center. And all of the wandering places through the gate are the places in the community where they said these places are magical. They are sacred to us. So we have Jackie Robinson's childhood home. We have Shirley Chisholm's home. But we also have tropical ice cream. I cannot tell you how many people said tropical ice cream was sacred to them. And I was like, I get it. So tropical ice cream will be represented on this. Also, the sign will be a diagram sign so people know what those spaces are. Community quilt cabinets assemblage. So you see here that we are working with conservation quality materials. We're working with metal, ceramic, glass beads. Each group has the opportunity to determine the thematic colors and the spirit of their assemblage. So we're working with My Time and Stroke of Genius on one of the quilt cabinets. And I let them know, I did a workshop with them and I said, you all decide, what do you want this to mean to you? What do you want the power of this to be? And what colors will represent that? And then also here, you can see a series of small ceramic objects. I'll be doing a number of micro workshops through the community of East Flatbush, where I'm just literally sitting on the street corner outside of businesses with a 4-foot-long table with pieces of clay. Somebody can come up and you can just make a simple pressure bead, put a hole into it. We fire those, glaze them, and they will go into the assemblages that each person will do basically a quilt block. And those quilt blocks come together to make the whole quilt. So micro workshops throughout the community and different durational groups that will have, shows you the grid. Each person fulfills a grid. And will be My Time and Stroke of Genius. And then we will have various spaces for micro workshops, the clay bead making, and then we'll do an entire community invite at a community space in East Flatbush where anyone can come in over the course of a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and make a quilt block. We will just ask that people who do that, they are there for, it is one group of people Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but we invite everyone. Cabinet, dreaming vessel. This is in cloth. We'll show you how we went from cloth to glass. This is a prayer bead. On the inside of this is a piece of paper that somebody wrote down, prayer, wish, dream, vision for themselves. This is this prayer bead rendered in hand-blown glass. We will be working with transparent glass beads, 350 to 400 of them, containing a slip of paper. Some of them you saw in community engagement that will fulfill all of those glass beads. So it will literally carry the weight of the dreams and the visions of people in the community. The top of the vessel is going to be a constructed prism. So it will throw rainbows onto the ground. Cabinet of portraits, 24 portraits. This is a through and through cabinet. You will see the front and the back. People in the community are nominating folks, they're unsung heroes, people who make their community home and special to them. You saw some of those people. This is all rose quartz, but we'll be using anything. You can go through here, but gemstones, the earth makes gemstones in every single color. And we will have a portrait of Shirley Chisholm. I believe the portrait is called The Vanguard, and it will contain iconic elements for her. The back, the front and the back, this is glass beads, similar to what you would see in some of the dancing works, like the mask works that come through Caribbean Day parades, and in multiple colors. This is about grief and love, so it's rose quartz and sapphire and lapis, but all gemstones. And one of the things I'm thinking about is what the earth gives us to use to make art. And we're actually using gems that are native to New York. So some of the pieces I've made have Herkimer diamonds in them because Herkimer comes out of the ground here. And Cabinet of Wonder, talked a little bit about that. To become 13 and be smart, we will make a small power figure. But this cabinet is special because it gives us the opportunity to engage with artists from the East Flatbush community. Children's Spirit House, we have color-in sheets. This is on the exterior, and we will distill installation into a powder-coated pattern that goes on to the Children's Spirit House. And we are 50% through. We have data for one complete elders bench, and we love this. Fabrication drawings showing the details of our conservation quality cabinets, through and through cabinets, freestanding cabinets, 360 view cabinets, through and through, through and through. So we should not have to do anything to this work. If nothing happens to the cabinet, we should never have to go into it. If the glass breaks, if anything occurs upon the artwork, we will have a conservation look at it and then replace the glass. Oh, thank you. This is from the Shirley Chisholm 100th birthday party where people got to touch stuff. We're very excited about it. Let's have some questions. Yes.
Actually, we will.
We not having
testimony
questions?
first.
Oh, because it's your meeting.
No worries. Thank you so much. Chelsea, do we have anybody signed up for remote testimony?
No, we do not have anyone signed up for remote testimony. Is anyone within the Zoom room here to testify? If so, please use the raised hand feature. I will give you a minute. Seeing no hands, we are okay to proceed.
Thanks. I also see nobody here in person, but if you are to testify, please let us know. Great. So now we can move on to the discussion portion and questions.
Okay. Commissioners, comments, questions?
The first thing I'd like to say, thank you first for your very detailed and wonderful presentation. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be here for your preliminary. The first thing, easy, in considering the substrate for the making in the tiling for the quilt, I would suggest that if it's possible to move away from using the chicken wire. But I would also suggest playing with going to McNichols and seeing other perforated metals. And then you can pick from a panoply. I don't know if it'll add very much cost to it at all, but then you have a choice of the different kind of perforated metals that people can attach to. Mostly I say this because the chicken wire is inelegant when you look at it if it's not completely covered.
It will, may I speak to this?
But I just want to finish this one thought. And that if you change to a perforated metal, if it is at all seen, like if it's a 5-year-old, sometimes they cover it all, sometimes they don't. If it's seen, then you could use a perforated metal that has a little bit more elegance to it, or a pattern that you choose. I'm not sure that other than to hold the other stuff, the chicken wire adds much to it. But with McNichols, you have 100 different options of perforated metals. And like I said, for about the same cost. That's a really simple thing. And then the second question that I have for you is regarding the titles for the piece, to get more close to the community and the titles. I know you've had only a little bit of time to think about it, and you kind of said a couple off the cuff, but I just wanted you to try to talk to it a bit more about what some of those the multiple choice of titles might be that you think
Yes.
after now you've talked to people, you're like, well, what do you think people's hearts about what they feel about their museum, something less generic than Brooklyn Museum?
Right. So centering the people. And there's a lot of pride in the actual name East Flatbush. So we're looking at the People's Museum of Love and Wonder. So incorporating East Flatbush and the People's Place, People's Museum into the title. I have generated East Flatbush People's Museum of Love and Wonder, which includes both East Flatbush and people, or the People's Museum, the People's Museum of East Flatbush, the People's Museum of Love and Wonder. I would like to keep Love and Wonder in the title, but I am going to broadcast it to the community and see what comes up. We do have to do some redesign for our landing page and social media that lets people know we need you to plant this garden with us, and that will come soon because we have to do some redesign on it because of the Brooklyn Museum of Love and Wonder title.
I don't have any problem with the Love and Wonder part. It's the first part where it is.
Yeah,
It's
that won't stay.
exactly.
It will not
Okay,
stay.
thank you.
You're welcome. And also thank you for the feedback on this. We really need something that is really movable for people to work with. That also, so each block will go to the community. Every group will have a world of materials, some of which they generate. We're going to take paintings from the group My Time and Stroke Genius that are 4 inches by 4 inches. We'll actually dip those in resin and they will become a form of a bead. I will then take every single quilt block that people make and I will do post-production on that work. So I will make sure that you can't see through. I will make sure that, so there is community production and then there's actually the actual assembly of the quilt, which is post-production with me in my studio.
The only thing I mentioned is if you
Thank you for telling me about this place.
McNichols is great, and I'm not saying that you have to use McNichols, but
Mhm.
basically they make every kind of perforated metal you can get. And what that means is that if you're thinking about post, you could add a material that you think might add content as opposed to having to cover. And that is an option. I'm not saying you have to, but if you do, it's kind of a wonderful tool and it may save you time.
It is a wonderful tool.
So
Thank you.
All right, anything else, Lori?
Hi.
Hi, thanks so much. Very ambitious project. I'm very excited about it. So I had a question. So I also agree about that ground material because the edges of the chicken wire is sharp. I mean,
It is.
you know all that. So I also work with that McNichols in architecture we use. It has all kinds of flexible ones. But I wanted to ask you about the little piece on the roof.
Yes.
So can you, because it went by really quickly, can you just go through that a little more?
Do you want to see it?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you,
if could
whoever's
just
doing that.
Talk through what we're looking at. Just, I'm curious
So,
about the material.
Aluminum,
Because it's out there in the.
it
weather.
is.
Yeah.
It is aluminum, powder coated. The individual pattern illustrations are going to be individually powder coated in a contrasting color and then mechanically fastened.
Onto this.
Yes.
That goes.
It goes into concrete footings through the weather barrier. So they're on the roof.
Yeah.
It is.
Hmm.
And the legs are actually going in soon. So there are things that have to be done before they do the weatherproofing.
I was trying to.
I think it's like 4 feet by, but I don't know it at the top of my head, but it's in one of them.
It's 30 inches in the inner dimension, 42 inches deep. And the height is 54 inches.
And then you have.
Mhm.
So you have a structural engineer.
We're using the engineer of record. Yes.
Oh.
Well, I like,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I like the evolution of the project. And this is just a suggestion, but I think the idea of like a map, I like how it's, more based in East Flatbush and like, you're kind of seeing like the neighborhood maps in
Mhm.
this project. And, I think there's also potential for the, this kind of idea, or project to, spread outside of the park or outside of the center. So that's not just,
What do you mean? Show me what you're saying.
well, just that, it isn't only
Spread.
housed in the, the Shirley Chisholm Center, but it's, it lives within the neighborhood. So there isn't like a border between like the park or the rec center and the
Yeah.
rest of the neighborhood.
Thank you.
So, that's another project, of course. It's not within this.
But it's life. I see what you're saying.
It's life,
Thank you.
yes. But yeah, a map I think could be really cool.
I just have two minor comments, just
Yes.
because everything's so great and inspiring. There is not a lot to comment on, but on the little house, you mentioned the motifs were going to be fastened or fixed.
Mhm.
Just lessons learned from working on playgrounds. Kids love to pick at things.
The very little raise,
Yeah, so
very little raise. So nothing climbable, nothing pickable.
yeah, just keep that in mind as you evolve it. And then the second comment had to do with the frames around the narratives that you're gonna have for each piece.
Oh, yes, yes.
I love that they're all different, and I love that they're all very creative and kind of break away a little bit from the formality of the sign. But one thing that struck to me is that all of your pieces are going to be very colorful in some cases.
Mhm.
And you showed all the frames to be of the same color palette, I think
Mhm.
like a bluish purple and yellow.
Mhm.
Just a question for you, if you think about changing the color palette of those frames once the artwork is evolved to echo the colors of the artwork more than perhaps having all the frames the same.
I hadn't thought about a rainbow palette for the signs, keeping the shape and the form of them with variability, but the palette the same, in line with some of the palette from the building. I'm not afraid of the color, and it's something that I will consider. I think especially for the third floor, because those are only children's spaces and the people who work with the children.
The only question I have about that, and this just working off, is that they are also different in shape. The one good thing is that if you see it and you see this very particular color, then you go, art. There is an artwork around here. Even if you didn't see the artwork, you're like, there's an artwork around here. So if you start changing the color, then they start performing differently as wayfinding. So it's like there's this sort of soft balance there. If there does still need to be this carry through, which is why the comment about the map is so important, because it brings into life the idea that there's this cruise that you can do and have a whole other story in the story of
Right.
being in a recreation center. So I think that that's an elegant way of saying that sort of this balance needs to be struck between letting people not necessarily read, but visual literacy read that artwork somewhere around here.
So the thing also about the map is not everyone can go everywhere in this building. Do you know that? Okay. So that we technically literally cannot invite people to every single artwork.
When I was saying that, I was.
Map of, I knew, yeah, which I really love that. Thank you so much for that vision. I really love that.
One other question I had was about the gate.
Yes,
Can you just explain that a little more, like?
yes,
how it
can we look,
function? Is it just?
can we look
more
at it at
slow?
the same time? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
that's what I would love, yeah.
Art of glass, you said, right?
Caged glass, yes, where you blow glass into wrought iron.
So is
And
it against-
anatomical, artistically rendered animal.
I guess wasn't
anatomical art.
clear to me, maybe I'm just not understanding. It's against a wall or it's in
No,
space?
no, it
It's
really
in
wasn't clear
space.
to you. It wasn't, but I'm going to clarify it. You are not crazy. So we have 2 through and through cabinets, which means they're visible from the neighborhood gate is visible from the lobby and the membership office on the other side. So it is, 1 or 2 cabinets that have multiple experiences of it, and it is in a cabinet and takes up the full space of the cabinet. So there's not 10 inches of empty space at the top. It is fully occupying that space. Its shoulders reach to almost within an inch to the exterior of, the sides of the cabinet. Yeah. So this is only telling part of the truth. The gate's longer. And we're further in design now. We're further in design, so you can see the center of it now once it went more into design after this presentation was sent to you. I think the cabinet itself is like maybe 8 inches or 10 inches deep. It is a cabinet glass front, and the front and glass in the back visible from lobby and visible from membership office, with the door to the membership office is adjacent to this.
So that's okay, that's the depth of the cabinet,
Yeah, 10
right?
inches.
10 inches. I
Yes.
see. I understand. Okay,
It's like a built window.
got it. It's like yeah.
It's by a built-in closed window.
Mhm.
Yeah.
2 panes, but then there's artwork in it.
In it.
Sandwiched.
Yes.
In it,
Sandwiched
right.
in it, so you can't
Got it.
touch it. You can't alter it.
And
You
then-
can just view it, and this light comes from the
But there's-
outside, this natural light, and there's artificial light going through it to the outside. So it'll cast double shadow. But the other question is whether or not it's going to be on 24 hours, because people will walk around the center, and that cabinet should have a light on it all the time,
And
so
it's-
you're casting
And
light,
it's glazed on both sides.
Yes.
Okay,
double glaze. I mean, it's a double glazed window with art in it.
Got it.
In the cabinet.
with the depth.
Yeah.
But
10
this would
inches.
also have the graphics on it too.
Yes. 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 So if we go back to the elevation, that open space this is where the map will be. This is the center of it is caged glass, anatomical heart, and spiraling out from it, actually like the branches of one of the trees that's native to here. Each different leaf of the branch, you should come to one of the next meetings, or we'll share it with you so we can show you where the design has evolved to. Yeah. And so the leaves wind out, and from the leaves, each leaf and jewel on the leaf is one of the sacred magical places in the community. Heart is Shirley Chisholm Recreation Center.
Oh, God, okay.
How? Oh, sorry, tell.
It is on. No?
No, tell me how.
Oh, it's just a classic symbol.
Of the
And-
anatomical heart?
Yeah, the Sacred Heart.
Okay, yes. I think that the Sacred Heart as sacred for every human being who has a heart. Yes. In the bottom, these are locks. These are brass locks.
Any last comments before oh, please. Are you?
First, I just want to say I was remote when you came here the last time, and your energy came through all the way to Puerto Rico. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to just so grateful that I was able to see you in person and see this in person. I just want to say, I feel like this is so ambitious. There's so many little pieces that are a part of the whole here. And yet you never lose the story, right? And the through lines and the detail. I love the bench, the elders, and the title. I Got Your Back, right? It's just so beautiful and perfect in so many ways. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the ambition of it and how much is going on here. And yet it's still very, very concrete
Yes.
in terms of what you're doing.
Thank you. As ambitious it is very challenging. Like everyone from Parks, from DDC, everyone has to step up to expand the way that they've done things and thought about things before. It's been very challenging, but I have to tell you, I've been in challenging situations where people's personalities and egos and psychological problems come in and make things like hatchety. Not in this group. Like every time I get off a meeting, I'm like, I mean, these folks are stable, you know, but which means that there's a lot of, we didn't do it before. We're going to figure it out. We're going to find where Yes lives and move forward from that place, which I don't know is always that common in institutions and places that have a lot of inflexibility. People believe in it, and I had to tell you, they come to my community engagement events, they participate, trace people's hands, and that's not their job, but they do it, they show up. So it's like the best team of people to do something hard with.
It's great.
Anyway, I'm gonna bring my kids because their grandma lives around the corner.
You
So,
can bring your kids, you
Yeah.
can let your kids make something.
well, there's
Grandma-
three of them. There's three of them. They
Grandma's
will.
gonna be there
they will be
too.
part of the
Gotta have her hands
convocation.
in it.
Vanessa, just to summarize and end this, I want to say, you said it's not that common. And
What's that common, to have a team of?
to have a team
Oh.
supporting you in that way. And we see that all the time, that artists and other designers that we work with talk about this idea of a community rooted process, but I've never seen it as fully expressed as it is through your work here, because the trust that you brought to the community and the trust that Percent for Art and the other agencies that you were working with put in you resulted in this kind of like piece that sings. And actually, I know early on we had talked to you about like, is this really about Flatbush, or like what, there were some comments, you know, like, is this really rooted in East Flatbush? And I think your position, if I recall correctly, and I don't want to speak for you, was like, it's gonna be, because that's who's gonna make it. And indeed, like, here it is, and it's so beautiful. It's so expressive of this place. And so I just want to put it on the record for everyone here that like when there's trust in the process and when the process has been orchestrated so with such an open heart and so much skill as you have done, the result will be one that will resonate universally. It's not
Mhm.
just about that place.
Right.
Because I think very frequently we have creators who talk about process and trust, and because we can't see the outcome yet, sometimes it gets the feet cut out from under it. And I want to say, like, we want to see more work that actually is like, we don't exactly know what the outcome's going to look like, but like, we're going to have trust and we're going to believe like it's rooted in the people of this place. And if we get that right, it will then be universal. And I think that's what you have here. And I would like to see that happen more in the work that we see. So aside from that, I just want to reiterate the comments of my colleagues here. Really appreciate your being open to reconsidering your title, and excited about whatever you come up with, People's Museum of East Flatbush, or any of those sound good. The material, Ken Seth mentioned, perhaps just considering that maybe it would make your life easier so that you don't have to come back in. So you said you'll think about that. Manuel's idea about the context map and talking about this place as being a bigger idea of community geographically, consider that. And finally, the idea of the color palette of the signs, and just to think about that. But I think I speak for everyone when I say We rarely have a presentation as impassioned and beautiful as yours, and rarely have an outcome. I mean, we often see beautiful work, but one that's so expressive of both your approach and the community that it lives in. So
Thank you.
congratulations.
I would like to return really quickly to your comment. I want to thank you so much because at this moment, thinking about the things on the third floor, having a different color palette, having the palette that actually brings in some of the elements of the Children's Spirit House from the installation? Or is it something that you experience throughout the building? I know that it's just right now in the moment that it
I
came up.
think for me, the comment has to come more around the fact that when you create the artwork, colors will naturally emerge from that community engagement. And we don't want the signs to compete with some of the work that's being developed. So would the signs complement that work? Or would
Okay.
they all be
Okay.
self-similar so
Mhm.
that they read on their own?
Hold the
Yeah,
whole story together. as one.
exactly.
There's value in holding the whole story together as one, and the art being the art. I see.
Do you have any other questions, Vanessa, before we take a vote?
I want to tell you that this is hard.
Yeah.
That this has been hard. And because I am an individual artist, and mostly I work in a studio by myself, I do not have a staff. I cannot tell you enough the muscle and the strength of Xenia, of Jen from Parks for Real, because like she actually has to come with a level of knowledge and ability to connect me to things that are really, really outside of anything that I know.
Yeah.
So it's not like having somebody who's just doing their job, they're translating an entire world to me so that I can fit into a thing. If I didn't have that, I would never do this again.
Right.
And I say that because if as an individual artist, if you do not have like a staff of 5 people, then, because like Xenia kind of acts like 5 people
Right,
sometimes.
right.
And so I will say that like, as I can only be impassioned, I can only be focused because of them.
Thank you.
Because I
so-
also live in Asheville, so
Yeah, right,
we
right.
hurricaned partially through this.
Mm.
And this team was like, hold for hurricane.
Yeah.
And which is important to have people not be like, oh, you're grieving, go back to work.
Thank
So
you.
all of it together is more important than me at all. So thank you so much.
That's such a generous comment, so much filled with love, and really, it's just 11 a.m. We'll just give that little magical.
Hard not to dance to a bell. Thank you all.
Okay. So, with that last comment about the excellence of our city agency collaborators, which I will underscore, as we see that all the time, and they are like unsung heroes of the public realm, we will now have a roll call vote on item number 29881, preliminary review of the installation of currently titled Brooklyn Museum of Love and Wonder by Vanessa German at the Shirley Chisholm Recreation Center in Brooklyn. Commissioners, when I call your name, please state your vote. Ken Seth Armstead.
Approved.
Isabel Casilla.
Approve.
Lori Hawkinson.
Approved.
Bill Heinzen.
Approved.
Karen Keel.
Approved.
Harry Maloney.
Approved.
Manuel Miranda.
Approve.
Meryl Tisch. Approved. Jimmy Van Britten.
Approved.
I also approve, so let the record show unanimous approval. All are in favor of approving this work, and congratulations again. Okay, do you want to take a moment to transition?
Yes. We will give the next team a minute to enter. Thank you for your patience.
We're all here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, why don't we give our two commissioners just 1 minute? And then we'll get started.
Test.
This is working now. This is that's the microphone. Yeah.
Okay. I want to, yeah, have a happy, yes.
All right, we're all here now. We're going to get started. We will continue with the public hearing portion of the meeting.
Okay. The next public hearing item is item 29882, conceptual review of the installation of past, present, future by Glenda Liz Medina at the Walter Gladwin Recreation Center in Walter Gladwin Park at East Tremont Avenue between 3rd Avenue and Arthur Avenue in the Bronx. Per standard procedure, applicants will give their presentation, then public testimony will be heard, and then the commission will ask questions, deliberate, and vote. We'll hear in-person testimony first, followed by testimony from remote participants, and we can now proceed with the presentation. Welcome.
Commissioners, I'm Kendall Henry. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Public Art at the Department of Cultural Affairs. And ahead of Glenda Liz coming to give a presentation, I just want to give you a little bit of background as to how we got here. As with all our projects, ahead of actually going through the Percent for Art process, we meet with the community board to introduce them to the idea of having art in the facility and letting them know how they could participate in our process. That happened on February 21st in 2024, almost a year ago. Ahead of that, and then we convene what we call artist selection panels. And this is where the community, as well as elected officials and city agencies, come together to look at a group of artists to be considered for a particular project. Our first panel convened on April 2nd in 2024, after which we selected a number of artists to be come in with proposals with a 2-month process of working on those proposals. During that time, we worked with them very closely to make sure that what they come in with is very viable, feasible within the budget and the materials used. Our second panel, when the artists come in to give the proposals, happened on June 13th, 2024, and Glenda Liz Medina was selected unanimously by the panel, which again consists of community folks, elected officials, and city agencies. We then worked with Glenda Liz for a number of months to finalize her concept into something that's more viable, really taking into consideration some of the comments that a lot of people had about some of her ideas. Once that was completed, we presented it to the community board on December 11th, 2024, where they had some comments, and I'm sure you saw some of those comments. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Glenda Liz to present her project.
Okay. So hi, my name is Glenda Liz Medina, and I'm an interdisciplinary artist born in Puerto Rico and raised in the Bronx. I actually have to look at my notes. I'm not so great with off the cuff. It's kind of hard to follow Vanessa, to be quite honest. Kind of hard to follow that, but I'm going to try. What was that? Okay, great. That's my photo. You don't need to see that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my previous work. So I'm interested in how humans learn, how we process information and make sense of the world. So what I do is I deconstruct systems and I reconstruct them to articulate my voice in order to create inclusivity and potentially elevate global consciousness. The systems I use are hip hop culture, indigeneity, and language. And today I'm going to focus on how I created my visual language and my practice and how I arrived at the proposal. So in 2008, I made this piece called Boombox, which relates to hip hop culture. From that piece, I made Black Gold, which is my signature language. It comes from the Boombox itself, is 50 shapes. After that, I created this piece called Exercise 1 to illustrate my existence. and the form of identity, the hybridity of identity. It's an instructional piece that deconstructs the visual language of the boombox, and it mirrors it at 45, 90 degrees, and 180 degrees to create these consecutive interlocking shapes, okay? This is my piece called Kapiku. So I use all of these systems, all of these shapes for my visual language, two-dimensional and three-dimensional work. So I made this piece called Kapiku to talk about Puerto Rican identity. And it's a misnomer. Kapiku is when you use one chip to close both ends of the games, but these uses a double, and you can't actually do that in the game. It's supposed to show how Puerto Ricans are a double identity with both property and citizens at the same time, and what the sugar trade did to that identity, because it's made out of domino sugar. And then I made these series of instruments that uses pictographs from the island to create indigenous instruments. This one is called Guido. And this one relates to graffiti using blueprints. So in 2020, I was asked to do my first proposal for art, public art. And it was for the Bloomberg Public Library in Medford, Massachusetts. And what I did, I created stacks. That's what this piece is called. And it's supposed to show all the different perspectives that you can get from a book in a library. And the black background is supposed to show the potential birth of thought. I'm already going off the cuff. I'm not looking at my notes. This is called Gratitudes Off Grand. It's for the MTA, Bushwick Station off the L. And this is actually my private practice and my public practice hitting the same path. I took this practice of like going outside and being grateful during COVID, finding something to be grateful for, and then bringing it into the public art realm, going around the Bushwick neighborhood, following people after they got out of the train station, where do people go, finding landmarks and making color studies of them. And that up and down motion was to show the up and downs of life, like how hard it is to find gratitude during tumultuous times. On the southbound side, I'm using nationalities that built that neighborhood as an inspiration. Let's talk about the project. So the project, when I first was asked to do the proposal, I didn't know where Walter Gladwin was, and I'm from the Bronx, right? So it's just like, where is this park? It's because that park was called Tremont Park, and it took me many, many years to even know it was called Tremont Park, because when I was a kid, we used to call this the park off Katrona, the smaller Katrona, or the park off Arthur, the park off Tremont. I didn't know what the name of this park was. And then I went for a site, and I realized I've been to this park so many times. I went to elementary school 2 blocks away. My brother used the baseball. He used to play baseball here. I used to play, what's that, handball. And so I was very familiar with the area. This is what the rec center is actually going to look like. It's going to be street facing, and it's going to be 2 stories. Excuse me, I have to I'm trying to do off the cuff and read my proposal. So the original proposal, I've made some alterations from the feedback. There's 3 walls. There's the primary wall in the library, the lobby, there's the secondary wall on the media floor, and then there's the gym wall. After feedback, I made some alterations. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about past, present, and future. So past, present, and future is the name of the proposal, and it was initially inspired by Gladwin being a foreign-born lawyer and politician, and the fact that as of 2022, 29.2% of New York City Bronx Community District 6 residents were born outside of the United States, which is higher than the national average of 13.6%. Using flags as a point of reference and consecutively focusing on foreign nationals throughout the history of the East Tremont section of the Bronx, starting from the park's split birth from Control the Bark to the Cross Bronx Expressway to its present day foreign population and its potential foreign national population in the future. So here you can see Wall 1, which you can see from the lobby, but also from the 2nd floor. And Wall 1 is composed of 30 deconstructed flags from Eastern Europe, West Africa, Central Africa, Ireland, Italy, and Puerto Rico, all in vertical orientation, representing the foreign demographic from the time of the Cross Bronx Expressway's construction. On a grander scale, the composition turns into one waving flag made up of different nations. The wave is inspired by the community and its vicinity to the staircase, the dance floor, and the movement salon. It would be, oh, I'm not even showing it to you. Oh my God. I'm not even showing it to you. So there's the 30 flags there, and it's going to be made of smalty of both matte and shiny smalty and gold trim. This is it in situ. Smalty is like, it's like glass chipped up to little pieces. like what most mosaics from the MTA are made of. This is wall 2, is in front of the Media Lab, and it represents the present. Its composition unravels deconstructed flags from the present dominant foreign national demographic, which is from the Dominican Republic, Ghana, and Mexico. The tiles will map out the area while the dispersed multi-glass interrupts the tile landscape. Since it's the only wall that's accessible to the public, I would try to push the topographical representation of the map using the shapes in between the tiles to represent the rows, aiming to be a both tactile and visual representation. So that's it in situ. This is wall 3. Wall 3 can be seen from 3 different perspectives, from the first floor, from the second floor, and from outside. And wall 3 represents the future and stands along the staircase. Near it, one can find the basketball court and a track. The flag's composition is inspired by the 50-star flag of the United States, the fireworks of independence and championship. It looks forward to the potential foreign nationals that might migrate to the neighborhood with the same dream of beginning anew. In it, I show the clusters of circles to show the importance of community. In the white stripes, I show that in order to progress, you have to take it step by step in order to self-actualize and gain justice. That's it from the second level. That's it from 3 different perspectives. And there you can see my proposal, past, present, and future. This is it in situ. Let's talk a little bit about the materials. So on the top left, that's kind of a sample of what the lobby would look like, except this background will be white. This is the media wall, and I want to raise this a little bit, meaning that this will be the flags deconstructed, and this will be the tile. And then this is the wall for the flag number 3, which is the 50-star flag. Those are just some cleaning and instructions and material. It's really easy, it's durable. It's like, you're not gonna go back to it unless somebody hits it really hard. So this is all of my 3 proposals, all of my 3 walls in situ. If you have any questions, I'm here. And that's it. Thank you very much for your attention. I also want to thank everybody here because I've had my own meltdown many, many, many times, many times from this proposal.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I'm sure we'll have questions for you in a moment, but first we will hear in-person testimony. Is there anyone here who would like to offer in-person testimony? Okay, seeing none. Chelsea, is there anyone signed up for remote testimony?
We do have people signed up for remote testimony. We are going to go in the order that they've signed up. So the first person we have on our list is Laura James. Laura, are you within the Zoom room? If so, let me see. Yes, I see you. I'm going to ask you to unmute and you'll have 3 minutes. 1 second. Okay, you may begin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
before you begin, hang on one sec. Jenna, can you bring the Zoom image back to the screen? Yeah, there you go. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so hello, thank you for hearing me today. So you guys don't live in this community and the artist doesn't live in this community. So you invite us to your community advisory committee. You come to the community board and you ask our opinion. You say you're listening to us and that you care about what we're saying. So I'm here to ask you to stop listening and actually hear what we're saying and do something about it. From the very first, we said that we didn't want the flag motif. It was questioned. The second design was also a flag motif, as you can see. There are reasons we don't want a flag. We don't want to see flags. Flags are polarizing and they're political. And a 2-story flag is actually not really welcoming to immigrants. And as a second-generation immigrant living in this neighborhood, when I see different flags waving around, I think twice about if I'm supposed to be going into these places. So I don't know about a 2-story flag in the recreation center. You know, is it appropriate? No. And we've asked since the beginning that this motif not be included. This is like the 3rd or 4th time that I'm talking about it. You know, it's like, can the artist come up with 2 ideas instead of 1? Is it unreasonable for us to think that she could do that? And I will just leave with this, you know, a senior board member of ours was refused service at a restaurant in Little Italy last week, right? So, we're dealing with a lot of different issues in our community. Asking you guys to not have this two-story flag in our recreation center seems like, yeah, okay, we could do something else. I don't know why this is literally the third time I'm talking about this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else, Jenna?
Yes, signed up second, we have Rafael More Planet. Let's see, I am going to ask you to unmute. Give me one moment.
Hello. Hi, my name is Rafael Mori-Panet. I'm the district manager for Bronx Community Board 6. I'm looking at the Zoom. Of the 17 people you have on Zoom, 6 are members of Community Board 6. So I think a lot of my board members are really interested in providing input on this project. The board did provide DCLA and the PDC a letter outlining our feedback on this project. It's kind of in line with what Laura was saying. I think the challenge is when we are trying to use flags to represent different groups, we risk leaving people out. And my board members are concerned that, while 30% of this neighborhood are recent immigrants, 30% of this neighborhood is also African Americans born and raised in the neighborhood. And board members have expressed concern that this group be represented in the arts, and then if we're only looking at foreign flags, that group feels excluded. That's kind of what my board members expressed. In addition, as Laura was saying, it's unclear how the American flag is representative of this neighborhood in particular. And board members had provided input that they would like that large piece to be representative of the neighborhood, representative of recreation, to kind of show something about this location in particular and not simply just the United States of America. I think people also raised concern about it be potentially polarizing, considering the dynamics that we're in with national politics right now. So that was essentially the feedback that the board provided. We are hoping that the PDC can also provide some constructive feedback around changing the design as it is currently looks, and that hopefully the Walter Gladwin Art Center can have permanent art that is representative of the neighborhood and doesn't feel groups in this neighborhood feeling excluded from the art that is supposed to represent different groups. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, Chelsea. Do we have anybody else signed up for remote testimony?
Signed up third, we have Annette Wright. Annette, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Give me one moment. Annette, is that giving you a notification to unmute? Okay, we're going to move on to the next person. Annette, we'll try you again at the end. Nicole Carter. I'm going to ask you to unmute, at which point you will have 3 minutes.
Good morning, all. My name is Nicole Carter, and I'm a board member for Board 6. And I just am echoing the sentiments of the district manager and my advisor, Laura James, in regards to the flag piece, because I was at the committee meeting when we discussed with the artists as well as the DCLA members that be reconsidered, and just still seeing it present without any sort of changes, it appears to it feels disrespectful. So just like I said, mirroring my people that went before me, and we could really discuss how this impacts the community in which I currently reside in, as well am representing it as a district on the board, as a person on the board. So I just want some more respect to be provided to us in regard to a project that's for community, that will represent, that will be remaining for future generations to come. So if that can be taken into consideration is what I'm asking to happen. Thank you.
Jenna, do we have anybody else signed up? Thank you so much for your testimony.
After Nicole, it looks like we have Magdamari Marcano. I'm going to ask you to unmute, at which point you'll have 3 minutes. Give me 1 moment.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak at this meeting. My name is Magdamari Marcano. I've been living in this community since 1968. And I remember what Gladwin Park used to look like with the city building being on top of that hill, on top of the steps. But as far as this artwork is concerned, it doesn't appeal to me. I've made myself a kid who wants to go into the recreation center. And if that's something, if the artwork is something that would appeal or bring me in, this artwork is not doing that for our community children, our current youth. And that's what I based it on. What does art is something that would appeal and attract and stimulate some kind of motivation to be better and do better. And since our community is such at a disadvantage overall nationwide, I feel that the artwork should reflect that type of feeling in the children, in the adults, and our future generations in this community. This piece of art does not do that for us in our community. Thank you very much, and that's my testimony.
Thank you for your testimony. Jenna, do we have any additional members signed up?
Yes, I'm still working down the list. Let's see, we have Nicole Nidier. Apologies for any mispronunciations. Looks like I see you in the room, so let me ask you to unmute. Moment.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the commission on this matter. We had a meeting with this particular artist at our last board meeting, and we did mention some integrations of the flag, the representation of African Americans, which was the red, black, and green flag. We also shared these designs with the artist, and she made it clear that she would adjust it, change it, and this may be the frustration from Laura, because this has been an ongoing conversation about this issue. So, you know, now that it's at the Public Design Commission, we would like to express our concern from Community Board 6. I am a member there. I do live in the community. And it is a reflection that could be misinterpreted. And the fact that there is no representation of the great population of African Americans in that community, that presented a problem. And we expressed that to the artist, and it just was ignored. And I feel like a lot of times in this community, and the Bronx particularly, when we allow things to go on, or different designers or builders come into the community and they say they're going to do a certain thing and they don't do it, there is no accountability held. So, you know, I don't know if that's something that could also be addressed, but we need to really be able to hold these designers accountable for the things that they're saying that they're going to put in our community. And when it's not done, like what, you know, could be done. But, you know, I feel, you know, the same way that my board members feel in regards to this. Initially, you know, I liked the piece. I think it was a very unique design. But if there were concerns about the flag initially, I think it should have been addressed. And I definitely don't see where the African American red, black, and green flag has been interpreted or put into anything since we last met with the group. And the pronunciation of my name is Jai, but it's Ndiaye. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Next on the list, we have Reggie Powell. I believe I may see you in the Zoom room, so I'm going to ask you to unmute. You'll have 3 minutes as soon as we can get started. I'm asking Reg in the Zoom to unmute. If it doesn't work, we can come back to you. 3 minutes as soon as we can get started.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. You can
Okay,
go
good,
ahead.
fine. Yes.
The Zoom to unmute.
Oh,
If it doesn't
okay.
work, we can come back to you. You may need to
I
mute your
apologize.
video.
I've been doing a lot of multitasking right now, working from home. I'd like to thank you for allowing the members of the community and the community board to speak on this behalf. When we first saw this idea, we kind of welcomed it, but we realized that it was not given a fair representation of our community. And specifically, when we pointed this out to the artists about the African Americans in this community, she kind of grouped us with all of West Africa. Now, we have no problems with that, but we as African Americans or Black Americans or foundational Blacks, we have our own distinctive calls and struggles and involvement in the community and in America, and we felt that we was being intentionally left out. And to just put a red, black, and green flag in this project, it kind of just said, okay, here, satisfy them and put a flag in it. And it really has something, then that will kind of compromise the intentions and the creativeness of the artist itself. So it goes back to the beginning where we ask, let's not get into this flag. For each flag we put up there, it's about numerous flags that we're leaving out, and it's not fair to them. With this new structure here, this new recreation center, it's going to be the state of the art. So we recommend that maybe something creativity along with the introducing AI, the culture, some type of artwork into this structure here. We don't see this here. We see 3 representatives of flag throughout the whole structure, and I don't think it's needed personally. And from the feedback we're hearing from the community, it's not going to be well received. And for the community members to come into this area and seeing this, it's not going to really absorb any attention. What we want to do is capture the minds and the creativity of the people. Now, we have an art center nearby that can work with the artists and to kind of project something within the community, and we'll welcome that if that's possible, if something like that can come about. But as it stands right now, we'd like the board to really reconsider this artwork and come up with a new idea and a design for the project. Thank you very much.
Jenna, do we have additional testimony? Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, we have one additional person signed up. I don't believe they are in the Zoom room, but let me check anyway. Kayla Kashiani, if you're in the Zoom, please use the raise hand feature and I can unmute you. If not, we have received your written testimony.
Jenna, do we have additional testimony? Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, we have one additional person signed up. Sorry, I was muting someone else. I think someone had their YouTube playing in the background. I don't see Kayla in the meeting. Is anyone else within the Zoom room here to testify? Oh, it looks like we have Annette raising their hand. I'll unmute you now since you were signed up earlier. You will have 3 minutes once this works. Hold on. There you go. Okay, you may begin.
Good morning. Sorry, I'm at work as well, so I couldn't answer in the beginning. But I agree with everything that was said already. I'm a board member and I've also lived in the Bronx all my life as well. When I look around and I see flags, it tells me I'm not included. It feels like separatism to me. Anyone that goes into the recreation center shouldn't feel any doubt if they belong or not. So I feel like the flags, I feel like they should be able to come up with something a little more different as opposed to flags. And that's really what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. I don't believe we have anyone else signed up to testify remotely. However, if you are in the Zoom room and you are here to testify on this project, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen and I will unmute you. I don't see any hands, so I think we may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. I just want to double check nobody's here in person. Okay. I would like to invite Kendall from DCLA to say a few words, given the CB's testimony.
Yeah, thank you. Kendall Henry again, Cultural Affairs Assistant Commissioner. I want to thank everyone who's testifying online about this particular project, but I also want to remind everyone that we're still in the design development phase of this project. It starts with internal reviews. And for those of you who are at the panel, you've recognized that this is somewhat different than what was proposed. That's because we have reviewed it, we've had some comments, and Glenda had made some adjustments. We continue to do so. We will take into consideration what you've said and really think about how it fits within the conceptual idea that Glenda is putting forward and how it references what she's doing here as a project. This will also go for the commissioners here. You know, you have thoughts and opinions as to how this could be developed further in a more positive way. We'll take that in consideration as well. As a reminder, we're still in design development phase of this particular project. And when you see it again, it will look different, as with any other project that we've ever done. So with that, I want to thank you again for your comments, and hopefully we could move forward.
I just have a question.
Thank you, Kendall, and thank you everyone who testified from the community. That's very helpful to the Design Commission. And I just want to observe before my fellow commissioners offer questions and comments that this is a conceptual presentation, and there will be at least one more presentation before the Design Commission takes a final vote. So there is an opportunity, as Kendall described, for iteration on this piece. So we are not looking at the final version of the piece, and this is not the final vote of approval from the Design Commission. So I just want to observe in our process, there will be at least one more presentation. So with that, sorry, Jimmy, go ahead.
Kendall, you know, we've been through lots of projects together, including Sunbather, which was wildly controversial initially in the community. So I understand that sometimes community engagement can be complicated, but there was a lot of feedback, right? I've been here for 2+ years and not had 7 community board members take time out of their day to testify against a project. So, and they made some charges, right, against the artist, the process, and the African-American inclusion certainly was a big piece. So I realize there's going to be another vote, but if we're going to vote today, at least based on what we're talking about today, Can you address that specific concern and the allegation that the artist has refused to include the feedback from and about the African American inclusion in the pieces?
Yeah, so what I encourage you to sort of look at is the overall concept of the artwork. And the artist is meant to, Glenn DeLeese, I'm gonna call you the artist. Glenn DeLeese is meant to, with this team, meant to really look at how all the comments are affecting the particular concept. There's a little misconception as to her not listening to what has been said. She's only been to this community board once. And we've heard the comments from the community board. And as the procedures go here, we submit those to you as well. So you see exactly what we've heard. We haven't had time to address them yet. During the first time we saw Glenn DeLeese's proposal, it looked very different than this. And there were concerns, and she addressed the concerns to the internal group's satisfaction. That's why we presented it to the community board for them to get further comments on the design. And as with any project, process and procedures, we go back, we have conversations within the internal group and Glenn DeLeese as to how can she address those issues, or how can she explain whether these issues should be addressed or not. And you know, so there's a lot of process that has to happen still. Not every project is going to be liked by everyone, but we sincerely put forward a lot of thought and consideration, particularly when this has to live in the community, to respond to those comments as well. So, but again, this is the first time. December last month was the first time she went to this community board. This is the first time we heard some of these comments, and we will address them.
Go for it. I yield to Dr. Tish.
I want to say, I find for everyone who thought that democracy died yesterday, I am finding this remarkably dignified and encouraging.
Thank you.
I have to say, I think it's really hard to be an artist and put yourself out there. You get reviewed all the time, you get feedback all the time. And for the people from the community board, I hope that you can see internally into this room, because I watched this wonderful young artist reflect and take in everything that you spoke about. I didn't see any anger. I didn't see any pushback. I found the artist to be listening and thoughtful. I think that we have every reason to believe that this will be an ongoing iteration and conversation. But I do want to say, my dear, that you have handled yourself in this setting really with a lot of dignity. And I am proud to be sitting in this room and to hear the testimony and to see all of this unfold. So congratulations to the local community members and to the artists and to the public design groups that are engaging here. Kensit?
Not at all. I'm glad that you made that comment. First of all, I want to thank you for your presentation, your very thoughtful presentation. And of course, I'm a bit baffled. And generally I'm a pretty straightforward person. I don't like monosyllabic words. I like simple language. And I have to say, I was confused by what people were saying about this work. I was confused about the criticisms. I was confused. And I sat and I thought about it, and I said, well, you know, African Americans, I mean, maybe I don't know anything about African Americans. And that could be true. Maybe I only know about me and my cousins. But you know, the West African flags definitely speak to the legacy of what the African American flag is built on. In the history of art, you know, just because I was a lecturer at the history of art at NYU, that doesn't mean I know anything about that. But I was, and I started thinking about like the history and the legacy of one of the most powerful symbols in the nation, and you know, maybe our central symbol in the nation. Every artist has had an opportunity to weigh in with their own particular viewpoint on that, from Jasper Johns to Dred Scott. Dred Scott happens to be a friend of mine, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. He won that case. I think I'm the godfather to their child. Yeah. So he's Dred Scott, not the original Dred Scott the artist, who is now 60 and not deceased. And I can't age myself. Anyways, the point is you're making my speech longer. The point I'm trying to say is that in the history of art, artists have been using the flag to engage what it is to be e pluribus unum, what it is to share this idea that not everybody's going to share the idea about the flag. Now, some people are using the flag now and they may use it as a wedge issue. Some people may use the flag now and they see it that it needs to be changed in a particular way. And I couldn't say as an artist, and I'm the sole artist represented on the committee that you have before you now at the moment, but I couldn't say that I would do the flag as you would, right? But in certain cases, like I just pulled up, using the internet, a show at Paula Cooper Gallery that just closed, one of the most reputable galleries, and it's a show of all of these artists in the last couple hundred years who have used the flag, and the list goes from known to unknown, queer, women, foreign-born, native-born, but the list is inclusive of every different way that you could change the flag, and they've all been allowed to use the flag in this way to express emotion. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is going to agree, and I agree with you that like isn't a prerequisite. Like isn't always a prerequisite to anything. There are a lot of things about our union right now I don't like, but that is not a prerequisite for me being a participant in the union. And I would argue, and this is, I'm thinking now, so that's getting dangerous, but I'm thinking here, that just the argument itself, that everybody has this stake in it, how deeply meaningful it is that you remix these flags. How deeply, and there are people saying, well, this is keeping me out, but it isn't. They actually showed up. And if you had puppy dogs in this joint, nobody would have showed up. Okay, so I can't say that I'm right, and I can't say that I'm wrong, and I can't say that they're right and that you're wrong. But what I can say is that the debate is healthy. And I can say that I support the artists to be able, and I'm going to read off, and I'm not even going to read all the names of the artists who have used flags as integral to their work in the last 200 years in this show at Paula Cooper Gallery. And I suggest anybody who has criticisms of this artist's use of the flag, they go and see the show online at paulacoopergallery.com, not at advertisements. The show's not up. Nobody's going to buy this artwork, but it's just a historical record of the way and the breadth and depth of how people have used the flag. From Benny Andrews, Diane Arbus, Sanford Biggers, Ja'Kai Booker, William Copley, Sam Durant, Carla Edwards, Elliot Erwitt, Robert Frank, Lee Freelander, Wayne Gonzalez, Felix Gonzalez Torres, Nancy Grossman, Hans Haacke, David Hammonds, who made his own version of the African-American flag, Lyle Ashton Harris, who made a queer version of the African-American flag, Rachel Harrison, Jonathan Horowitz, Douglas Hubler, Sonia Keeler Combs, Jasper Johns, who made his whole career using the American flag, Cheyenne Julian, Edward Kleinholz, Josh Klein, Louise Lawler, Jacob Lawrence, who is a cousin of mine, but Swole LeWitt, Roy Lichtenstein, Glenn Ligon, Robert Longo, I'm going to read the whole list, Peter Moore, Ernie Mack, who made a quilted version of the American flag, Richard Marquis, Klaus Oldenburg, Gordon Parks, William Popel, who crawled on the flag, John Quick-to-See Smith, Faith Ringgold, Dred Scott, who had artwork where you had to stand on the flag to comment on the flag, Getty Simony, Ming Smith, who only got into the collection of MoMA because they didn't know Ming was a woman and was a model and now turned photographer, Sheng Quan Chi, Keon Williams, Hank Willis Thomas, who made various versions of the American flag, Gary Winograd. Anyways, this one show is labyrinthine in the ways that people could interpret the flag. I'm not going to tell you that yours is less than theirs, though I think you should have been in this show, though I don't know how that didn't happen. I don't know. It's weird. The art world's weird. But I am here for this. I'm here for this argument. And if anybody wants to argue with me in public, I will come to the next community board meeting and they can argue with me and not you, because I think this is honestly exactly what should be happening.
Thank you. All of you. I am listening.
That was a bit overlong.
Commissioners, Momo, please.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. And I agree with a lot what Ken Seth said. I think for me, the visual language is very interesting. Like it's essentially like user interface elements from a stereo. And it comes from hip hop culture, which I think, unquestionably is like an African American art form. So I think there is African American representation. It's not specifically the flag, but it's also abstracted. So you're playing with the shapes and, essentially, I don't think anyone looking at this will look at, the first artwork and understand that this comes from, user interface for a stereo. But I think that's, that's okay because it's in the realm of art. It's not in the realm of design. So it doesn't have the same kind of, requirements or frame of reference. And I think similarly for the flags, obviously those are abstracted as well, right? Like there isn't, I don't see like a leaf from the flag of Canada, or I guess there weren't immigrants from Canada coming here, but there isn't like a star or other shapes that are really recognizable. They're all kind of like abstracted and, processed or remixed, I think as you're saying about like your methodologies. So, so I think that's, I think it's, so I think to bring the idea of representation to that, it's a tricky kind of discussion that I guess will be ongoing, but, I think, I haven't been part of this conversation, but I'd be curious about, the question of representation and, how does this work? How should it literally represent, any community in this? Because so much of it is so abstracted, but it's still, dynamic and visual and really interesting. For me, kind of, personally, my kind of subjective take on just formally, I don't know that I guess its presence, I don't know if it literally needs to be mapped, onto a representation, of the area. I think just the shapes themselves will be dynamic enough to kind of, get the sense of, the dynamism of the community, I think. And then, I think for the flag also, it is also a kind of closer representation of a flag, but yeah, I mean, I think that's something that can also evolve as well. Yeah, so those are just my kind of general thoughts on just like the form and the formal language and where things are coming from. But I think hip hop, yeah, like you're saying, it is inclusive, and it's a form that takes samples from other places, and I think that's kind of present in this work. And I think people forget this, but like, hip hop, Puerto Ricans were also kind of like there too, from the Bronx, it comes from the Bronx. If you see the movie Beat Street, a lot of the characters are Puerto Rican as well. So I think there is this kind of, mixture that's, that represents kind of, everything and, is pretty inclusive. That's my feedback on it.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Lori?
I just don't want to be silent and just say that I support my colleagues. I think they were very articulate here. And as an architect, only architect on the panel, I wish the architecture maybe was somewhere kind of, well, let's say, confrontational aspect to it. But thank you very much. And I understand we'll be hearing from you again. So I look forward to that opportunity.
Thank you.
Last thing I want to just say is that remix is what it's all about, but I am here for this work, and I will be at that next meeting. You just let me know where it is, and I will go there, and I will talk to all of these people. I'm a deconfliction artist, so I will go and I will talk to them, and we will come out of this with your work being supported, because I just don't believe, I don't believe that any of the comments that people made actually substantively detract from what this work does. It actually does do what they say they want done. So I would love to have that argument, and that's democracy.
Thank you.
So I could personally, not summarizing yet, I couldn't agree more with that. And I think the fact that I thank the community members who showed up for this and spoke to it again, because debate is healthy. And I would offer the idea that we should not give up the idea that a flag could represent all of us, right? We shouldn't give that idea up. And I know that that's what you're trying to say, that the future is possible, that we can have some optimism, and that we're not just going to turn our back on the idea of a flag, but rather we're going to try to create one that does reflect who we are, and that's the future that you're speaking about. So in summarizing, I want to acknowledge the deep feelings of representative of the community who spoke, and to acknowledge the fact that people there were a number of emotions expressed, including anger, the feeling like they weren't being heard. And we hear you, Kendall, on the fact that there was just one meeting, but I think we need to hear that. And to say to the community members, thank you for caring so much about your community center, and that you're right, flags are polarizing, right? But perhaps one answer is to turn your back and say, we want nothing to do with this flag. But another path may be, no, we're reclaiming this flag in our own way, right? So those are conversations that you are going to have with the community. And so I want to reiterate that this is just a conceptual presentation, and that this is a concept about whose flags belong to this community, and what were they, where do we come from, where are we now, and where are we going? And that fundamental concept is what we're voting on here today, and that how that concept gets expressed through your work will be between you and the community that you're working with. But we anticipate with excitement that we will see, after your and Ken Seth's attendance for the next community meeting, that we will see the next iteration. And we're excited about that, as I know the community members of this community will be excited to see that. Small point about the map. Manuel made the point, and we just asked you to consider that. Personally, I don't really, I think that how literal that is, and I'm understanding that you're going to have topography in there. So as a person in the community, you can actually touch it and feel the topography, which I think will be very appealing to children, especially. So I like that. But I think the task for the next phase is to say how we represent ourselves as a community, as a city, as a state, and as a nation is our choice, and that we can have our own flag, and we don't have to just say we have no flag. So I think that's the charge for you going forward. So with that, I'll now take a roll call vote on item. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just had one thing too, is that,
Please.
you know, and maybe this is something DCLA can speak to, you know, I think with any kind of, you know, non-white representation, there's always this aspect of like scarcity mindset where, okay, we've got our chance to represent ourselves and we have to get everything in. And so I think, you know, maybe if there are other opportunities in this neighborhood, in this area for representation, then there isn't so much of an onus on this one piece to like capture everything. And maybe that's something to speak to in future meetings, board meetings, et cetera.
Okay.
And I just wanted to circle back, Kendall, because with the sunbather experience, right, we had enormous opposition. People told me as the council member that I had to stop it, right? And I thought the worst person to determine what is good art is a politician, right? And Tom Finkelpearl and I had a town hall with 300 people. And I realized you can't always get consensus, right? But we were able to bring the artist and talk about the piece, and it all died down. And even if people didn't like it, right, they understood it, and the piece happened, and it's there. And I still don't like it, but it's there because we supported the artist, and we supported the vision. And I like this piece better than I do the sunbather, but and I support the artist. I know how hard it is, right, to be subject to public scrutiny.
It's getting easier.
I live that life for a long time, so it's really hard to be judged, right? I just want to also though hope that DCLA, whether Ken Seth is there or not, but has that sort of town hall experience where even if you don't get to consensus, because some point, not everyone's going to agree and just got to make the hard decisions and go with it. But I do hope that there's something, because there was something to, right, the community opposition that we saw today. And I just don't want to dismiss it, right? I don't want to sit here and say that we know better. And for them to also continue to feel that somehow, you know, something is being imposed upon them in their community. So I will support and vote today, but I just want to implore you all, as I know you want to further explore this with the community.
And that's a given. So it's part of our process. I need to say something about the Sunday then. Dare I say, people are embracing the sunbather now. They're embracing the sunbather now. Yeah, but it's on murals as an icon for the community. So, but it's a good testament to sort of when you engage the community in conversation, good things can come of it. So, and this is again our process. This is a given that we will go back to the community when we have something to show them again. So, Kenseth, you'll be invited.
I will be there. And I want you to know I'm going to shake everybody's hand and I'm going to listen to them. And I'm, you know, it's not about, like, to me, it's not about confrontation. It's just about being there, shaking their hand, listening to them. And also, I stand 100% behind what you do. And I think people who really do stand 100% behind what you do need to show up. So I will be showing up. And I think that's just part of the process.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Gwendolyn.
Thank you.
So again, this is a conceptual review. There will be perhaps a town hall, certainly another community board meeting, and then there will be iteration. We thank the community members who testified, and we urge you to work collaboratively to continue your participation here and continue your collaboration with the artist, particularly on the future. And with that, I'll take a roll call vote on item number 29882, which is a because it's an artwork, we vote on conceptual, and then there will be one more vote. So right now, what we're voting on is the concept. What it ends up being, how the artist expresses it, we will see in the finally, we'll see in the next presentation, but this is a vote on the concept.
Would you just reiterate what the process is? Because we
Yes.
understand the process. They may not. So
Yes.
just go through it for a second.
Sure. So when there's a public artwork, the process for approval before the Public Design Commission is as follows. The artist presents to the community board and creates their concept, which has been presented us today. When the Design Commission sees that presentation, we often hear from community members, as we did today, and we couldn't do our work without that. That's a clock for those of you who are not in the room. And then with the feedback that we received during the conceptual presentation, and it's not just the Design Commission, but more importantly, with the feedback that the artist hears in this first conceptual review, then the artist returns to her studio, the artist returns to community meetings, and then the artist will iterate based on kind of integrity with her original concept and openness to the perspective of the community that she's working in. And then and only then will the artist come back and present her final proposal. Well, preliminary, but we won't necessarily have a vote, so it would be.
To know what our process is.
Yes.
And as always, you did a perfect job.
Thank you. So with that, everyone ready for the vote? And again, as I just articulated, this is conceptual, and this artwork will change between now and the next presentation. So for the conceptual vote on item 29882, conceptual review of the installation of past, present, future by Glendalise Medina at the Walter Gladwin Recreation Center in the Bronx. Commissioners, when I call your name, please state your vote. Kenseth Armstead.
Approved.
Isabel Castilla.
Approved.
Lori Hawkinson.
Approved.
Bill Heinzen,
Approved.
Karen Keel,
Approved.
Carrie Maloney, Manuel Miranda,
Approve.
Merrill Tish,
Approved.
Jimmy Van Bramer.
Approved.
Also approved, so let the record show that there is unanimous approval for the conceptual design of Glenda Lee's Medina's work at the Walter Gladwin Recreation Center, past, present, and future. Thank you.
We need to unmute the boardroom.
Number 29883, preliminary review of the reconstruction of Third Street Playground in Prospect Park at Prospect Park West between Third Street and Fourth Street, adjacent to West Drive in Brooklyn. Please note this project is located at a designated scenic landmark, and as such, the Landmarks Preservation Commission has issued an advisory report, and the commission has reviewed that report. Per standard procedure, applicants will give their presentation, public testimony will be heard, and then the commission will ask questions, deliberate, and vote. We'll hear in-person testimony first, followed by testimony from remote participants, and we can now proceed with the presentation. Welcome.
Thank you so much. My name is Jillian Pagano, and I'll be presenting Third Street Playground's preliminary design this afternoon. As mentioned, we received positive advisory report from LPC in late November and official Brooklyn Borough Board approval in December of 2024. The budget for this playground is $3 million and we're just under a half acre, about 14,000 square feet. The goals for this park are to create a unique play destination within Prospect Park, to increase climbing, agility, and imaginative play throughout the playground, and incorporate accessibility into new play elements. The playground is located nearest, is in the northeast quadrant of Prospect Park, adjacent to Park Slope, the nearest neighborhood. Residential land use speckled with in public facility and institutional land uses are nearby. We're well outside of the floodplains at risk and away from extreme flooding. There are other playgrounds close by in Prospect Park, Harmony Playground and the Tot Lot at Garfield Street. The historic 1874 Prospect Park planned by Olmsted and Box did not originally include this playground. It was first constructed in 1941 by Gilmore Clark and Amory Embry II, and then reconstructed in 1973 as an adventure playground by Richard Datner, and then redesigned again in 1994 by Nancy Prince and New York City Parks. The existing site plan shows two main entrances. The play zones for 2 to 5-year-olds, including a small water play area, sand pit, and tot swings are on the left side of the screen. Play equipment for 5 to 12-year-olds is on the right. And then a large water play area is in the center. One of the two entrances is accessible. Play equipment is in good condition and will recycle the hardwood decking into the new design. The plan also aims to reuse the existing benches as much as possible. Security lighting is ample and we plan to include to maintain that. The asphalt pavement is uneven and cracked in many areas, and a few drainage issues stem from settled pavement nearby catch basins, also caused by water play that's turned on all season. The lone tree in the playground will be removed. It's stunted in growth and provides little shade value.
That's the tree.
Oh, hopefully not. The tree that we just mentioned is centered in this photo with steel play equipment in the background. You'll see here the playground is full of perimeter shading, but little to none in the center of the playground, which can be seen in the right back part of this photo. The swings are tot swings on the left and tire swings on both the 5 to 12 and 2 to 5 play areas. And you'll see the tot swings facing north. The center part of the playground is most exposed to afternoon sunlight. And more site amenities, a drinking fountain to the left, which is inaccessible. We use typical B9 DOT security light poles and 1939 World's Fair benches. Last October, we conducted a virtual community input meeting. We hosted 2 tabling sessions inside the playground and solicited an online survey. And the key themes that we heard from children and caretakers alike was a desire for more climbing, sliding, and imaginative play in the future playground design. People were also very eager to keep water features and enhance the shade. Which brings us to the original schematic plan submitted in December this past year. But hearing and responding to preliminary comments from the PDC, here's our revised schematic plan. The new plan maintains age group separation with play elements for 2 to 5-year-olds on the left and 5 to 12-year-olds on the right. The center of the playground hosting seasonal water play, rustic playhouses, and unencumbered open space intended for all age groups. This playground is 14,000 square feet and aims to balance the spatial requirements of the new play elements with the requirement of site amenities integrated into the playground design, such as seating for caretakers and children, accessible routes around play destinations, and greater shade, which was another ask from the community. So the first element that we'll look at in closer detail is the synthetic turf mound. The design intent of this mound was to think of play for small children through a different lens than typical street steel play equipment. The mound integrates climbing, balancing, and sliding into a singular play feature. The synthetic turf is accessible, and wheelchairs are not only able to travel across the turf to the mound or seating areas, but are also intended to engage in the play elements in the embankment play. 2 transfer stations are located at the north and the south end of the mound, and another at the 5-foot steel slide toward the top of the screen. There is a slight overlap of equipment use zones within the route of circulation around the mound, but it's important to note that the first foot of elevation is located approximately 2 to 3 foot within the mound footprint. Additionally, play elements most at risk for this overlap are the net climber and parallel bars. The way children will interact with these elements is at low risk of them falling, running, or rolling into the primary route of circulation. The appeal to older age groups is not as much a concern for this space because the challenges here will not hold the interest of older kids, especially when the playground, when across the playground is a mountain of climbing and sliding intended for older age groups. A majority of the benches at this element are located strategically across the lower portions of the mound to aid in visibility. However, we did discuss and consider how caretakers in this specific age group are typically more likely to move around with children and stay seated for shorter periods of time. And as a parent of young children, I also find this to be true. Here we see the range and elevation presented by this mound, providing a variety of routes across and through this mound, and also different areas of this mound appeal to different subgroups within the age group 2 to 5. Synthetic turf and embankment play has been used successfully throughout many high-profile, high-use New York City parks and playgrounds. This view shows the varied elevations of the turf mound with views across the playground. And the camera set for this rendering was set at 4 feet on top of a bench. The shadow can be seen in the foreground. Excuse me? It is new equipment. The recycled hardwood decking will be repurposed as much as possible. And now we'll look at the water play area, which is defined by a flush and accessible flagstone pavement to mimic a meandering watercourse. The watercourse begins with a vertical water bell in the upper right-hand part of the screen, streaming water down to the pavement. The location of the ground jets also meander through the jets, through the flagstone pavement, providing an assortment of water jet destinations and experiences. Water play now has 2 manual activator bulbs, so water play can turn off when not in use. And the location of the backless benches, responding to another comment, from the PDC were selected based on a few different criteria. So first, we did want to deter children running from steel play equipment from running into the water play area. And in a similar fashion, we wanted to deter children running from the water play area into tire swing use zones, which are located nearby. This seating is also further enough away to stay dry during water seasonal play, so it's not at risk of getting sprayed. And the seating also functions for the steel play equipment that is not shown. So it's meant for both water play and steel play equipment zones. And here's what the seasonal water play could look like during the summer months. The steel play equipment incorporates an accessible route for wheelchairs and older kids, leading to a 3-foot slide with transfer station and many built-in panels along the route. This accessible course connects to 2 separate climbing routes that lead to 2 8-foot steel slides and a wood slat bridge. The equipment was intended to incorporate more climbing and sliding opportunities and to be varied and interesting in the play experiences that it provides. We've also incorporated freestanding play equipment such as the tire swing with the wood posts on the left, 2 different configurations of rustic playhouses, and it's play panels integrated into new steel fencing. Because of the comments we heard from PDC, I did want to show this circulation diagram to show a variety of destinations driving the central circulation of the open space. Flagstone pavement serves as a visual way to move about the open space and during cooler months when water play is turned off, which could lead into a circular route around this open space. When water play is turned on, children can still use the flagstone pavement to chart a course to the playhouses or to the benches and play panels beneath the shade. The playhouses on the left has a back to deter children from running into the slide use zone on the mound. And the playhouse on the right allows children to move freely through it and visually to some of the ground play destinations next to the seating, some of the play panels built into that steel fencing. The central space was also mindful towards providing unprescribed, flat, and open space for crawling, toddling, running, scooting, and moving around uninhibited within this area. So here's a rendering showing playhouse destinations along the flagstone pavement route. And this rendering serves to show how children can play, they can see play panels and or seating and be drawn to these destinations while playing in the center of the playground. The flagstone pavement serves as a visual transition from the open space to the wood decking area and also to water play across this primary pathway. And nestled between the tot swings and the synthetic turf mounds, children seeking a quieter space will find more play panels and benches sized for their bodies. Children can snack, rest, or observe more active areas from this nook. The surface materials shown here support a palette that it can be typically found all throughout Prospect Park. And here's our existing fence configuration. The custom fence was designed in 1994, the custom perimeter fence, and it's in good condition, and we plan to keep it for the next iteration of this playground. The fencing on the inside of the playground will be reduced to 3-foot steel fencing and will have play panels integrated. The playground's planting palette is salt, drought, and flood tolerant. It's native understory and shade trees. And the native shrubs on the right side of the screen will be used to screen existing and new utilities. Permeability in this playground design has increased to 3% from very close to 0%. And that brings us to the conclusion of this presentation. I'd like to address any questions or concerns at this point.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I would like to see if we have any testimony for this project. Chelsea, do we have anybody signed up for remote testimony?
We do not have anyone signed up for remote testimony, and we do not have anyone within the Zoom room. So we are okay to proceed.
I also see nobody in person, so we can go ahead to the questions and comments portion.
Commissioners, questions, comments?
My next one.
I can start. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think overall the concepts that you're incorporating on the playground are quite innovative and exciting, right? Having areas that are more your typical playground, using the flagstone to create a path of exploration through, and then the mound, that's a very innovative feature, I think are all successful. But I feel like the plan needs a little bit more calibration and reworking because all of these elements feel, one, disjointed from each other, but two, they also don't quite facilitate what may be a more intuitive circulation around. And I'm going to explain why I'm saying this. With the turf mound, I fully understand that it's ADA accessible, fully understand that there's a path around it that is outside of the fall zone. But as you showed in one of your renderings, the one at the very end, the pavement area in front of the benches is really occupied by people's feet if they're sitting there, forcing those that want to walk around the mound to walk on the turf. And as you very well pointed out as well, caretakers tend to stand around when they're working with kids of smaller ages, which makes you think that these areas are going to be quite crowded at times with people standing near the mounds, watching the kids, others that may have chosen to either sit or put their stuff on the seats. And it doesn't really allow for a clear circulation zone around the mound that is not encumbered either by people sitting or by people watching their kids. Mm-hmm. So I think a simple solution, and we have issued this in our comments, is to expand the paved area a little bit in front of the benches so you do have a dedicated circulation zone that is not conflicting with the mound zone. The second observation is exactly this corner, right? When you look at it in plan, there's not a lot of room to turn around and come back to the wood deck and playhouse area, or doesn't quite feel as natural of a movement through, which worries me that it feels a bit like a dead zone. Either people don't find it, or a group of kids may completely like stand their ground there and not not allow other kids to feel comfortable moving through. So I think, again, just thinking about the circulation around that area is really important to make sure that everybody feels invited, and that these different activities between sitting and standing and playing don't conflict with each other and basically close off the circulation. Which I think the other side, the kidney shape area, does very well. You have your play equipment in the center, and people are able to move around freely and able to get to those benches, I think, in a more comfortable manner. So that's one big picture observation. The other one I have is with the wooden deck. I mean, I think we all appreciate the increase in permeability, the change in material, the tactility of it, I think, is also very good. Imagine a kid jumping from the flagstones to the deck. I think that's a very enriching experience. But again, the deck feels a little bit disjointed with the rest. And I worry that its curvilinear shape is not really contributing much spatially, but will be difficult to detail and build, because you end up with every single piece of wood having a different configuration. So I just wonder if there is a way in which this deck could be thought of as being more integral with the rest of the geometries, while not necessarily being overly complicated in a way that doesn't contribute that much. So those are my big picture comments. I think you are at the beginning of something really exciting, but I think the plan needs to be a little bit more carefully balanced, to allow for all of these different uses while still not taking away from that freedom of play and discovery.
Anyone else? Comments?
Just curious, you said that it's going from 0% to 3%?
Right. I think it was 0.002% permeability. It's a 5x5 existing tree pit that represents the pervious space in this playground right now. There is an existing drainage. There are catch basins and water pipes that run beneath here that also capture stormwater along the perimeter of the playground.
So I live in this area, and I've used this park many, many, many times. And I will say that the water does collect in the park quite a bit. And also, if this is still going to be the only access to the park, that entrance where you're coming in off of 3rd Street, it's also really not accessible from one side when it rains.
Right. We do have the accessible entrance is on the south side of the playground.
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about. But right underneath there, it's covered in mud every time it rains. Do you want me to show you where I mean?
I hear you. It's this one.
No.
Oh, you're pointing to the accessible entrance. You're referring to.
Which one?
Sorry.
It's what makes it inaccessible is it floods a lot.
Yeah, it floods right here, all over here. It's all
I'm sure we
flooded.
can take a look at that.
This is 3rd
as a
Street,
definition.
right? This is 3rd Street.
Right.
And so this is the access that most people use. And this is where it's always underwater and muddy when it rains.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Svetlana. I'm Director of Landscape Architecture with the Prospect Park Alliance. As some of you know, there are many really old drain lines running underneath this playground that connect to the rest of the park and then empty out in the lake. What we've been doing systematically and really trying to do a lot more with our work with DEP is be on top of the cleaning and maintenance of a lot of these catch basins. I think part of the issue of this flooding is that they just haven't been maintained. What we found in this area and in the Long Meadow, where there's a lot of pooling that happens, is that these old clay lines have been broken. And so we're going a little bit, as much as we can and as fast as we can, to upgrade them and to maintain them more than we have in the past. So I do think that the flooding should be lessened as we move forward.
I don't know about the flooding. And I hope that it does become less, because my children scoot past there all the time. We go with the 2 the scooters, and they can never scoot past. But it's darker, and in there, it's a lot of tree cover, and not in the park with the one tree, but around. So it's a lot of tree cover. So it's not like I feel like if you embed the wood, even if it's best case scenario, 15 years, soil contact wood, I just don't think it'll last that long. And I also think that as the trees grow in, those 3 trees, that you're going to have a lot of conflict with it, both growing in and being warped by the roots and the root system, and also that it'll decay earlier than what you think if kids actually do jump on it because they think it's fun. But that doesn't mean that I don't want there to be natural elements, but I think embedded in the ground, the only place where you can have permeability, and it's the only place, the whole area is a bit on the darker side. I think that it won't last very long, but that's a conversation for debate, but whether or not and how long it will last.
We've employed this strategy, recycling tropical hardwood from equipment from the 80s and the 90s and other playgrounds in our park. And the hardwood is little to no maintenance. Our tree pits have allowed for already large and existing trees to thrive and continue to add valuable shade to our playgrounds, which is why we keep employing this strategy. It protects these trees from compaction. We've had an arborist also look at this design, because we do have a lot of fill beneath this playground. They've helped us with the spacing and the species, and they're very comfortable putting new shade trees in the center underneath this material.
Okay. All right, so just to summarize, we had some thoughts about the circulate. Did you want to say something, Nancy? I'm sorry.
We'd look at the detailing under that wood. So it would be broken stone and it would have some drainage. That makes it last longer. It doesn't last forever, but lasts quite a long, and Prospect Park has been able to replace. And we heard this circulation and the deck issue, and that maybe both could be solved at once. I was just thinking. So I think your comments will lead to a very good place. We do want to have synthetic turf at the edge of a mound, a flat area of synthetic turf. And that's a lesson learned from a project in Soundview in the Bronx, where the synthetic turf ended too short a distance from the bottom of the mound and kids rolled down the hill. And we just want to have something smooth. So it may be where people circulate too, but just having that extra not landing on hard pavement is good. But we hear you, and we'll look at the comment.
That makes sense, Nancy. And I just have a question for myself. I think you maybe started saying this, but somebody cut you off. Isn't the synthetic turf usually permeable?
It is. This will have a rubber surface under it. Will still be permeable, but
just
for
less.
Department of Environmental Protection, it's too permeable. So the water passes really fast, so they don't count it. So that's why in our presentations, it says it's impervious. It's just a DEP categorization.
Got it.
In their view, the water goes too fast through it.
Yeah, I just think it's an important note, and I understand you're referencing different things, but with this, same as play surfaces, depending on how they're detailed, they're usually permeable, and that is something to speak about, right? Like permeability is not always accomplished with planting or wood decks. I get that the distinction is different, but from a larger picture perspective, you are increasing permeability through those means, and it's good to remind ourselves of that.
And this playground is very compact, and so it saves all the trees and the green space around it. And that's often the case, our approach, rather than put more planting and more green space within the playground and make it bigger, is to make it compact and leave all the existing green infrastructure around.
Okay, I want to just observe that you are, right, the original designer of this playground?
Yes, and I love this design.
Yeah, right.
I love
Yeah.
this design. It
no,
was
but
my first job. It makes me feel very old, but
Yeah, but I mean, I just want to say, like, as a resident of the city, we appreciate that you're still doing this and that you're open-hearted to the next iteration of.
yes, I
design.
love it.
That's great. Okay, so in conclusion, we're going to take a look at the circulation I think we heard some clarification around the safety reasons around the mounds, but something for you, maybe just to take a look at it and see if there's something that you could do that would keep that safety, but also give a little more space for the circulation. As well as looking at the area to the west of the swings, that little kind of, maybe there's something we can do to make that area more useful. The wood deck, we talked about integrating it or simplifying it. And finally, we heard from Svetlana about the flooding. So I think that's been pretty well addressed. So with that, I will now take a roll call vote on item number 29883, preliminary review of the reconstruction of Third Street Playground in Prospect Park at Prospect Park West between Third Street and Fourth Street, adjacent to West Drive, Brooklyn. Commissioners, when I call your name, please state your vote. Ken Seth Armstead,
Approve.
Isabel Casilla,
Approve.
Lori Hawkinson,
Approve.
Bill Heinzen,
Approve.
Karen Keel,
Approve.
Carrie Maloney,
Approve.
Manuel Miranda,
Approve.
Meryl Tish,
Approved.
Jimmy Van Brabant.
Approve.
And I also approve. So let the record show that this project is unanimously approved. Thank you.
Okay, we are now returning to our next public hearing item.
The next public hearing item is item number 29884, preliminary review of the reconstruction of Harding Park at Bolton Avenue and Gildersleeve Avenue in the Bronx. Per standard procedure, applicants will give their presentation, public testimony will be heard, and then the commission will ask questions, deliberate, and vote. We'll hear in-person testimony first, followed by testimony from remote participants, and we can now proceed with the presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Juan Guzman Palacios. I'm a landscape architect at Marble, and I'll be presenting Harding Park today. This is a project that's part of a CPI that we've been working on with the Parks Department. We've developed a set of initial goals, and I think just without having to go through all of them, the main goal is really to activate spaces that are not occupiable today, providing new circulation routes for areas that have been left behind for many years, and upgrading play areas and fitness areas. The site is located in the Bronx. It is split into two different lots. We have Gildersleeve Avenue in between, but we're designing it as one main park. We have a little bit of coastal flooding issues on the southern lot over here. And same goes for stormwater issues on the southern lot as well. The park is very much a neighborhood park that is surrounded by mostly residential units and 1 to 2 story tall buildings. This is an inland park. Within a 10-minute walking distance, there are mostly parks that are on the water's edge, but Harding Park sits in the middle of Harding Park, and it is very much a neighborhood connection park. Just an overview of the park. Again, as I mentioned, it is split between 2 different lots. We have Gildersleeve in the middle. On the north side, we have Bolton Avenue, which is one of the main connectors for pedestrian circulation that connects O'Brien all the way down to the south parcel. Bolton Avenue does abruptly end at the mid-block of the park, and then we have a totally undeveloped area adjacent to our park. The south lot itself, there's an existing HOA building, and then there is no real connection between the HOA building and the park itself, but it does exist there today, and then the southern lot is totally undeveloped. Just zooming into each parcel, the north lot, again, there is this main connector where we need to work on better pedestrian connections. And the interior of the park is primarily 3 different play areas, a basketball court, a trellis, a spray shower area that's not always turned on, and then there are some fitness areas. And I think it's just also important to note that there are areas that are totally fenced off and not accessible, but those are opportunities areas as well, particularly on the northern end. And then the south lot, we have the HOA building, and then right behind that, we have a totally undeveloped space, a homeowners association. So this is all totally undeveloped, and I think it's also important to note that this area hasn't been touched in many years, so there are residential areas that have encroached into parks property, and we're coordinating those efforts right now. There are a lot of existing mature trees. The north lot has approximately 112, and the south lot has 150. We're working very hard on making sure that we maintain most of them. Any removals for right now are conditional removals. This park hasn't received any upgrades since 1997, approximately, and I think it's very telling from this image. A lot of old hardscape and play areas. This is the basketball court. Right behind the basketball court, you can see the totally undeveloped and overgrown vacant lot. This is standing from Gildersleeve Avenue. You can see that there are no proper sidewalks across Bolton Avenue. And then there's also really no sense of entrance to the park itself. Turning around and looking at the south lot, this is what it looks like today. It is totally undeveloped, no proper sidewalks at all. And then when you're inside the park, actually, when it's clean, quite beautiful. We do like the character of the space. There's a significant grade change between Bolton Avenue and the interior of the park. We have met with the community. We have also met with the community board. And some of the things that we've heard and just the 3 top priorities were play, fitness areas and sports, and also green areas. There's a particular focus also on green areas. People were really interested in making sure that we kept the character of what is there today, especially on the south parcel. So that takes us to the concept for the design. We are using the word raíces, which means roots in Spanish. And this came from two different perspectives. One of them is the cultural aspect of the neighborhood. This is a primarily, it's a very diverse neighborhood, but it's primarily Puerto Rican. So we really wanted to find ways to celebrate the people that make up this neighborhood. And then simultaneously, we have a ton of existing trees. So rather than working against them, we wanted to find ways to work with them. With that, we really wanted to make sure that we kept the character of the space as it exists today. This is an image of the south parcel. You can see people inside it. And obviously, there are a lot of invasive species that we'll need to clean up. And we're working on that with the design. But we really want to make sure that the character remains as it is today. And with that, we're really working with around the critical root zones rather than against them. So how do we do that in plan form? What we started doing first is overlaying both the critical root zones. And then based off of that, we started identifying areas of opportunities. So the teal areas are the zones for open spaces that can be occupied. With that, we began overlaying first how people can actually access the park. So we identified 3 important entry points at either corner of the lot and then one at the mid-block. And then we started creating a circulation route that meandered around the critical root zones of the spaces of the park. Same goes for the south parcel. We identified 2 totally new entrances on either end of the parcel, and then we started meandering through the critical root zones of the trees. With that, we were left with basically 2 different spaces, one of them that we're referring as a buffer zone. So this back of house area is primarily backyards, just residential units. So we really wanted to make sure that we provided enough of a vegetation buffer between the open active area and where people are actually living. And then we were left with these open areas that are highly activated with the design that we're proposing. So based off of that, we broke the north parcel into 4 different zones. We started with the north area that we have an interactive space. We have the active area in blue that's more like a court with basketball and fitness. We have a play area in yellow that's more of like a concentrated playground space for kids. Today, it is kind of separated, but we're trying to really make it feel like one space. And then the welcoming area, which is this kind of entry plaza at Gildersleeve Avenue and Bolton Avenue. On the south parcel, we really wanted to keep the aesthetic of what, or the character of what's there today. So we are just calling it an interactive nature trail type experience. With that, here's an overview of the park today. We're going to be zooming into each one of them so we can talk in more detail about that. But this is an overview of what it looks like with the majority of the existing trees. Any trees that we're not showing are just conditional removals. This is without trees. We really want to make sure that the form and the design language on both the north and the south parcel in Plan View feel like one connected system. And then just zooming into each one of the parcels, here's just a view with the trees, but I can talk about program without the trees. We have our north entry point with a multi-purpose lawn and different types of seating. We have our active area, which is more of a colorful basketball court with fitness areas on either side. There's also a picnic area south of that that's buffered with a layer of vegetation to create a little bit of privacy within this area. We have now connected all the play equipment, like the play spaces, and we have designated a zone for a 5 and up play area and a 2 to 5 play zone. We also have a new water play area and then a welcoming plaza that has different forms of seating that encourages social interaction. Zooming into the playground itself, we mentioned that we really wanted to celebrate the Puerto Rican families and community that lives in this neighborhood. So we are working on developing this big play structure that's a 5 and up play space, but also it's a very sculptural coqui frog, which is very significant to Puerto Rican communities. This is a play area. This is totally climbable. It is interactive and kids can occupy the space. There's also a bi-level climbing play structure that has ADA access throughout and then just different types of play elements. On the 2 to 5 play zone, we have, instead of being one like big structure, we have split them out into different pieces. So we have sensory panel areas, we have areas for swings and climbers, and we have also provided a turning wheel carousel type space for kids, and it's also fully ADA accessible. For the water play area, today is mostly just a spray shower. So we are redesigning this area. We're regrading it so there are no drainage issues. And we'll have some ground sprays, some misting arches, and also water buckets. So it really creates different types of experiences. For example, with the water bucket, it's like a sense of anticipation of like, when is the water coming down? We also have new swings, and we have flat seats, bucket seats, and also a totally inclusive seat, which that's located over here. We have fitness equipment. We are providing a diverse set of fitness equipment on both this area adjacent to the basketball court on the right side. And there's also another fitness area on the left side of the basketball court that also includes accessible pull-up bars. So it's accessible to all. For the south parcel, this is an area that we really wanted to, we don't want to heavily program it. So first we began overlaying the proposed circulation route that again goes around the existing trees. So these are all the existing trees with potentially just a few new ones. And then just without trees, you can see how it's meandering through and working with like the kind of language that you see with the critical root zones that just meanders through the trees. And then we're creating different areas. So we have our entry plaza that has different forms of seating. We have a pump track that's an interactive kind of playful space for kids with bikes and scooters. This was a request from the community. We also have a picnic area. You can imagine parents waiting for their kids as they're playing in the pump track. Then there is also an elevation change. So once we hit this point, it goes from an at-grade condition to an elevated path. So that starts feeling more like a trail system. You're elevated above vegetation. And this area is literally just an elevated path with loungers. And this is a bird watching zone. Bird watching was something that we heard from the community as well. They really want to make sure that they are able to do that in this parcel. And then you can exit the park on this southern end. We have a little bit more seating, and then we slowly start getting back up to grade. So you'll understand the topography's change in the sections that we have at the end. Fencing, there are a lot of existing fences on the north parcel, 7 feet. And we're changing that. We're trying to lower them to make the park feel more welcoming. So we have a 4-foot continuous fence, except for the basketball area. And then on the backside, against the residential units, we have an 8-foot chain link fence. There you go. And then on the south parcel, honestly, most of the fences that are there today are just from the residents because nothing has happened here since almost 30 years ago. So we're trying to keep it that way. We want to make sure that it feels open, but that there's also a little bit of privacy and a buffer between the park and residents. So we do have an 8-foot chain link fence here. And then along Bolton Avenue, we have a timber barrier rail. So it's more on the lower side, just to make sure that people can safely walk from one side to the other. There is not any existing lighting today inside the park, so this is all totally new. We're proposing new light poles for both the north and the south parcels. We're working with primarily New York City park standards furnishings. The only new additions are the gliders, swings, and then these loungers. The gliders are on the north parcel, the loungers are on the south parcel. This is an overview of the hardscape. So we really want to make sure that we highlight the different zones that we've created on the north end with 4 distinct colors. And then on the southern end, we have 2 different types of paving. And this is primarily because of the change from at grade to an elevated path condition. So on the north end, we have more of a warm tone color palette. The yellow and the blue are just diagrammatic. The actual colors that we're working with are more in this zone right here. We also have our elevated path actually here as well that kind of goes through existing trees. So it creates more like a little woodland trail type experience. And then we have our water play area that's integrated color concrete and cast in place concrete. For the south parcel, we just have 1 type of unit pavers for this at grade condition, which is this steel gray color. Then we also have our elevated path that is the same as the north parcel, is a precast concrete, just planks. And then the pump track itself will be a precast concrete. There are a lot of existing trees, but there are some areas where there are gaps. Some of them just existing and some of them are just due to conditional removals. So we're trying to make sure that we replace them with new canopy trees. And then there are some smaller multi-stem understory trees as well. Let me go to the next slide. This is the updated version. We have also understory planting. Today there is really no understory planting. So we're proposing something that feels totally new to the space. Well, obviously for the south parcel, we're removing all the invasive species and planting new shade or partial shade tolerant plants. Today, the site is roughly 55% permeability rate. Obviously, we're changing that to 52%, and that's because we are expanding kind of the length of area that's occupiable within the park to 52%. The south parcel is 100% permeable today because there is absolutely nothing there today, but with the new design, it is 78%. And then here are just some views of what the space starts to look and feel like. This is the entry of the park on the north end. So this is Bolton Avenue. It feels open. We have a multi-purpose lawn area. We have different forms of seating, your typical back benches, and also you have your gliders that are facing the lawn as well. This is the active area where we have the basketball court. On the right side, there's a layer of vegetation in between the basketball court and the picnic area. And then you can see in the very back the fitness space, and then the multi-purpose lawn is right behind here. As you turn around and you look towards the play area, this is where we have a playground today, or we're proposing the playground. It will be totally open. It's not fenced off right now. And you can see here a glimpse of the Cocky Frog, which will be both viewed from obviously inside the park, but we also are placing it in this particular location so that it's visible from the larger kind of neighborhood as you're approaching the park. This is the entry. So this is at the Gildersleeve and Bolton Avenue intersection. So this feels a lot more welcoming than what it's there today. We're making sure that we provide benches and also game tables. So you see people as you're approaching the park and it feels like a welcoming environment. The south parcel, this is our entry area with different types of seating, and then you can see the proposed pump track in the background. So as you enter the park, you can see that space, and it's like a destination in a way that you have to meander through this path to access this pump track. This is the elevated path. This is at the lowest level. So this is what this trail experience starts to feel like. So it's totally elevated. We have our loungers and different forms of seating nooks over here, and also one in the backside. We're also proposing bird houses, just so that it attracts wildlife birds and people can come and bird watch as requested from the community. This is just another view. So the previous one was standing here. This is from the other side. We have some loungers with some tables, and you can lounge here and look out and be immersed in nature. This is a section from the at-grade condition. So this is Bolton Avenue, and then this is all fully at grade at the entry plaza, and then the pump track area. And then as you get more towards the middle of the park, this is where we have a more significant grade change. It's roughly 6 feet in elevation change, but we're making sure that we're working with the grades to go down to have our elevated boardwalk area. And then this is where you have your bird houses, and it feels just like a very kind of nature experience. It feels immersive and welcoming. And here's just, again, an overview of both the north and the south parcels. So thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm just going to check if we have any testimony today. Chelsea, do we have anybody signed up for remote testimony?
We do not have anyone signed up for remote testimony, and we do not have anyone within the Zoom room, so we are okay to proceed.
I believe you said we do not have, sorry, the volume is a little bit low on our side. Nobody signed up.
Yes,
Great.
that's right, we do not have.
Okay. Well, over to discussion.
Okay. Lori, want to start?
What is that? Who, oh, sorry, who owns that lot?
I'm
What's
sorry,
going
which
on
one?
with it? The undeveloped lot, the city, do they have plans? The city have plans for that? What's the plan?
Oh, you're
The
referring to this area?
undeveloped lot,
Oh, over
that-
here. It's a
the giant-
similar condition.
the big guy, the big guy.
No, up there on the north.
Upper left, upper
Oh,
left,
yeah.
the largest thing.
Oh, on the
big
undeveloped area.
elephant
Sorry,
in the
sir.
room.
There are just
Yeah.
so many undeveloped spaces. Maybe, would you like
Yeah,
to
just
talk about that
like
one?
whose is that and what are they doing with it? It's a city, okay.
Yeah.
But what are you doing?
Well, so. No. It's not the city.
It's
So
not
there's
the
a,
city, okay. Oh, okay. So what's with that one?
So there is a development in progress here. We're coordinating with the planning department right now to understand a little bit better what is happening here, but it's likely going to be a private residential area with multi-story building.
It's private property, but they're working with city planning and DOT because the street's gonna continue at some point.
So there must be an FAR and all that. I mean, it'd be great to have a section through that and to understand if they are thinking about something like what.
I don't think we've seen that yet, right?
They're not there.
No.
There's no zoning for it.
There is a big zoning right now.
Yes, the city planning is actually working with the developer on rezoning that area because the neighborhood is mostly single to two family housing. And this would be, the proposed development is 4 to 5 story at all. So they have to go to the rezoning. And the ULURP, I believe, is being scheduled to be finished this summer.
I mean, it would be great to just know what how high it might be. So you could, I'm sure you're thinking about this, like what the shade would be and what that edge is, how it is received and all that, since it's being rezoned that's not that far away.
These buildings here are actually not all 1 to 2 story buildings. They're
But
actually-
I'm talking about that guy, the future.
Correct.
That's the one that's what we're talking about.
Correct. So can I point at the
Yeah,
screen?
Please go.
And it is on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So Bolton Avenue here, most everything below here is like 1-story residential right now. These buildings that are a little bit newer than the rest of the neighborhood are, I believe, 3-story, 4. So and this is a right of way, even though it's right now it's just a sidewalk and the street portion of it just stops here. There's a right of way here. So then the development that's I guess planned and it's been through city planning looking is probably similar in height or comparable in height to the ones right next to
It's
it.
actually a little bit taller than that.
5 stories, so 2 stories higher,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Than that, right?
And that's east.
That is east.
Yes.
East on the
Correct.
side. So that's your morning light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there will be some kind of road there. I mean, I'm just
Shade
thinking like,
here, yeah.
you
like-
can assume it would be interesting. I mean, that's what I
Right.
think about, because
I think that the right, so as a reference, the right of way, I think as it is shown today,
Yeah,
like you see the edge of the building, so
That's
more or
the
less
setback?
kind of the setback.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
And just
Great.
while we are waiting for more information on the undeveloped lot, like we are coordinating with DOT on like the actual sidewalk condition to at least
Right.
provide a pedestrian circulation route.
And just one other question about this, more about the south, because you raise the walkway at a
Mhm.
certain point, there's a kind of a point where it becomes the wood. And
Mhm.
it just because all of a sudden the topography might say, oh, we need to lift it up a little bit or something. So
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see a section through that. And then that whole area, nobody goes in there. Is that true?
Today?
That wooded area?
Right, yeah,
Because
no.
you showed people like in the trees in your photo. And so now I'm wondering in the south end, should people go in there or
Here, yeah, absolutely. So
in the
today,
wooded, in the green area?
here,
And then next to it, in the deep part, the
Oh.
deep, thick area, like move your cursor to in the back in the plan, I guess. Yeah, maybe the plan. I just wanted to see in that, back to the plan.
oh, yeah.
So
Just to
don't have
the
a-
south of the HOA. the
we are-
larger
right
area.
there,
That,
like,
yes.
what happens in there? Does anybody get to go in there? That's just.
No, we're
Nobody
going
goes
to plant it and no
Nobody
one
goes
will
there.
go in there. Yeah, the only accessible areas will be the gray and light brown
The path.
spaces. Yeah, the path
Got
and
it,
the pump track.
got it. Okay, thanks.
Or Bill.
Just a quick question about the city-owned illegally occupied part there on the southwest corner. I know it said it's in progress to, it's, oh,
okay,
it's
thank
very
you.
visual,
Not
but
the microphone.
it's
It's-
like dedicated parkland.
Yes, it's an encroachment and we find it several this year, about 4 of them. It takes a little while to work through the legal. We'll get it back
Okay,
eventually.
okay, thank you.
So we're definitely like designing around it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Juan, for the presentation. First off, I want to say that I'm very excited by this design. I think you guys have done a great job at grounding the design on the site, both working around existing trees and preserving not just the mature canopy, which is extremely important, but the sense of place the area already had, even though some of it felt wild and perhaps underutilized. And two, also working with the community to create some hints at some cultural pieces that are really important for us as Puerto Ricans, while also, still being inclusive and creative to children of all cultures. So I think those are all very successful things. I also really appreciate how the plan is very fluid and interconnects the different spaces that have different activities, while still allowing those activities to occur independently, right? So by narrowing the paths and carefully locating vegetation, it all feels like a fluid space, while still allowing for those definite uses. So I think overall, the design is headed in a very successful way. I do have a couple of comments just for consideration as you move forward. The first one has to do with the eradication of invasive species, and I know you provide a very thorough response, right? One of the challenges with these types of sites is that we want to get rid of those invasives. We want to preserve tree canopy, yet we want to add new planting that we hope will thrive and survive. And by thriving, minimize opportunities for those invasives to come back. It's very challenging. So as you move forward, just questions, and these are mostly for you, Nancy. Is there any way to begin the invasive species eradication earlier in the construction process or even before construction starts, so you give it some time to work through and maybe several rounds of eradication before you're actually bringing in the soil and the new plants? And two, I know sometimes budgets are very tight, but the smaller the new plants are, the more opportunities there are for those invasives to find their way back. Are there ways in which you're thinking about these projects slightly differently from others, where perhaps we need to look at either larger species or some sort of seed mat or plug mat, something that I guess goes a step above in encouraging establishment to minimize intrusion?
Yes, for the second one, yes, that's possible. We'll do all the things, we'll specify the plans in a way that will give them the most success. Our contract doesn't allow us to do a year ahead through this contract, through this capital money. We wish it did on a lot of projects, but we can talk to our operations people and see if they could do some targeted removal of invasive species, but they're strained with this current budget. So that's the best answer I can give.
Understood. Was something to think about.
I'll also say that
mhm.
we have we have an ecological designer on the team, and their focus is to help us with this parcel in particular. They've been on the site, they were on the photos, and they're helping us with making sure that we select the right planting species, and also through, we're working with parks on specs too, and our ecologist is helping us with that as well. So it's all in progress.
Great. So other thoughts and comments related to that parcel. I think the area with the wooded deck, the circulation and the inhabitable spaces are very explicit because the land is much lower and the deck has that rail stop. But the areas before that, where the pavement is flush with the green spaces, I worry a little bit about people going into the green space and carving desired lines that will not only impact it, but may also drag, affect your new vegetation, may also drag other seeds on elsewhere. And an example of that is Bush Terminal Park in Brooklyn. There's a big area that towards the water that they try to keep as more of a nature preserve. And maybe because the water and the views are enticing, people have cut their paths through, and it does two things, right? It brings some of those seeds forwards, but it also impacts that nature preserve. So maybe thinking about either some types of edger that disencourages that, or simple things like signage that say, let's preserve our natural landscape. Don't walk, don't compact it, I think could be useful additions. And then the last thought I had is, I think you have been very thoughtful about placing seating and different seating types in different areas. One thing that always strikes me about parks in Latin American communities is that when they want to gather outside, they bring their 30-person, 50-person family, and they like set up for the entire day, especially for birthdays and celebrations. And I don't know if that's something that the community has raised here in response to your design, but I would like to find perhaps a couple more opportunities for picnic areas that allow for those larger groupings. Just again, understanding how this does tend to happen in these kinds of areas generally.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go for it.
You want to go first? Yeah. Go for it.
It'll be quick. I love it, and I suspect, like Isabel, I love the coquille. We have a home in Puerto Rico and spend a lot of time there. This is a serious question. I was thinking, the coquille itself is very special, but of course the sound of the coquille is part of the soundtrack to the island, right? And is there, I don't even know if Parks does this generally, is there the opportunity to have a motion activated sound where the children would probably have a lot of fun
for yourself?
Yeah. Right. Isabel just said she had the same thought, because just to sleep on the island, right, in many places is to fall asleep to the coquille, right, which is a magical experience. It'd just be so much fun for the kids to not only see a coquille, but to hear one. Is that even possible?
So I would say electronic or something with mechanical parts is really difficult. We tried generating power in a park in Queens
Right.
that didn't work, even though we tried really hard. We can see if there's some sound that's not
Like a speaker
mechanical.
of some kind, right?
Well, not a speaker, I think would be very difficult.
Okay.
And then the houses are really close, so anything that makes noise, we always think about that.
Yeah, I was thinking that, the play manufacturing company has some elements that make sound. So maybe, that you can hit on it. Like maybe we can work with them to find one that's similar or like tune it or, and include it as a panel within the play area. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one company that will that makes music
Right.
really, really well, and so maybe that's the company to go to. They're musicians who make
Right.
play
You
stuff.
can just tell the neighbors they'll sleep better to the sound of it.
Oh, I don't know.
Now that is a joke, though.
People are very concerned about drums. We
Of
put
course,
drums in some of our.
Yeah. And Isabel is our expert on all these things, but I love Solomon Seal. And I know it's challenging sometimes to maintain it and keep it going, but I love the use of Solomon Seal.
On page 24, you have the sort of thematic areas. And well, I began to think about this, like I don't really know what a Latin inspired painted court is exactly. And you put some colors there, but I that opened up another process in my head together with the fact that you keep referring to Boricua in the Puerto Rican culture around the park. And I think thematically having an engaging Puerto Rican culture with the park, the naming of its walkways, whether or not there is like, I don't know what a Latin inspired painted court is exactly, or if there could be one that is that, but I do know that that would be interesting. Like what is that? How is that? How is culture in the walkway and the legacy of past Puerto Ricans reflected in this park? Could the walkways be, someone's way? So that each time you're traversing it, you're getting a bit more of Puerto Rican culture. And point of pride. It's not impossible to do just entitling the different walkways, but and also the benches and etc. But then also when I came back to the Latin inspired painted court, I'm like, well, what are these colors? Like what are those colors? And if there's a designer that you're going to work with or an artist to work with to imbue it with that you know, that thought. And this echoes on what people are saying about the Coqui frog and all these other things, but how many layers and how far do you want to go with it, and how can you proceed in this way?
We can certainly study the painting on the basketball court. I think we also just want to be mindful that yes, it is a Puerto Rican neighborhood, but it's also a diverse neighborhood. It's not just Puerto Ricans. So we don't want to make the whole thing feel like Latin America or the Caribbean. We want to be inclusive of everyone. But we can definitely explore opportunities, particularly for this graphic on the asphalt.
That is exactly what I'm getting at. Like, so if you're striking this balance, you know, like, I don't know. I mean, I literally don't know what a Latin inspired painted court would be, but I think that is an interesting point of inquiry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just, it's ill-defined, and you can help me out with that.
I would say the name is a little bit odd and feels a little bit forced. I think maybe it's more about the idea, and I don't know if this was the thought behind it, that instead of being a plain old basketball court, there's opportunity to incorporate a floor mural that may be reflective of the community or local artists or something that also grounds it without being a specific culture, because I think that's where we also need to strike the balance. Obviously, as a Puerto Rican, I'm extremely proud of what you've done here, but we also need to acknowledge there's other communities, and there's a balance between acknowledging the larger community with also elements that can be interpreted or accepted by others in a similar way. And I think the frog is great, because us that know about the Coqui associate it that way, but those that don't see it as a frog that fits within the natural approach of the project, which also seems fitting and appropriate. So I think with the court, maybe striking that same balance, right?
Yeah.
What are we trying to do there, and how
are we actually putting in place something where there's a commission for an artist? Who's making this decision?
So no, this would be colorful court inspired by the designers and their research. Because once you add an artist, we've extended the timeline for this small project by a year, like you heard this morning. So it's going to be, and the designers can take your input and be inspired by their research, or they're talking to other people. But that's our approach to that. We love art. But for a playground, for a project this size.
I get it. I mean, I get it that it makes it more difficult to deal with an artist, but then you get something that is authentically authored. And the question only came up because I saw this label, and like I said, it's ill-defined. And what I love is how beautiful the park is, the flow of it all. And it seems that in this way, if you're opening it up for a creative, I don't know that, like, I don't know exactly what you're doing with that. Like whereas with the Coqui and the playground, I have a clear idea of what those things do. I don't have a clear idea of what this thing is going to do, other than allow people to play basketball. But if it is of, you know, if it's Latin inspired, and it's in this particular case 1/8 of the park, it has some value. And I think that then yeah, it may be more difficult to deal with an artist, but saying you like art and then saying, and then we will still deal with artists means that you get more. And I think your team already has kind of come to the table with Latin inspired painted court. I don't know that, I don't know where you're going with that. And that's I find to be problematic. And I would suggest an artist.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll change the way we conceive it and call it. And because it's really, you know, interesting, colorful court, which is very valuable.
Okay, any last comments? Okay. On that last point, I just want to note, this is not a percent for our project.
Correct.
So yes, so I'm just confirming there isn't a budget for separate artwork or work with an artist. So I think on that point, your approach, Nancy, of thinking about this as not art, although it would be wonderful to have art in this park, is we understand and encourage you to explore that.
It'll be
Yeah.
a creative court.
Yeah. Other points, I think I also was wondering about the invasive eradication. We have this conversation every time we talk about a natural area in park. It's really all about, it will look beautiful on day one, but it's all about the maintenance over time. So I know.
It's the right thing to do here. There's
is.
nothing else to do, but
No question.
but-
It's just like, it'll be year 2 and 3 when you're like, oh. Because you can make something that kind of works as a system now worse by making it opening for more
Yeah.
invasives to come in if it's not maintained.
we will look at that.
Yeah,
Like we
I mean,
plant in bigger sweeps of single things. So
Yeah.
that the untrained maintenance people we have can understand what should be there, what shouldn't. So
Yeah,
that helps. We have like
We've learned a lot. since
technique.
my
Deborah
days at
or
NRG.
Nancy, maybe there's a way to actually think about changing the contracts. If this is an issue, I mean,
to
change the contracts.
have them be longer or
No,
have
or
a
just to acknowledge this
pre-
issue.
yeah.
I think
It's an issue that we're seeing on a lot of recent
mean,
projects,
Yeah.
both
Isn't it-
parks and not parks.
It's been a conversation. It's been a conversation for years.
I mean, this is an issue that was adhered with the work when I was with the Parks Department in the late 90s, which is that Parks doesn't have adequate funding for trained staff to maintain, to understand what's invasive and needs to be pulled and what's not invasive, right? And
Yeah.
needs to stay. So I think the strategy that we talked about here about more dense, larger initial planting, which I know you already do, and perhaps operations doing a sweep through to do an early eradication. I actually think that will be more impactful than anything else if you can get them to do that.
Yeah. We'll talk
Because a
about
couple
that.
seasons of eradication, by the time you do your planting, will help a lot. And then we talked about the measures to keep the circulation on the path, and you'll consider that. I'm just noting that. And then picnic areas for large groups, which I think was a really important observation. The possibility of a coquille sound. And,
We'll see.
like, why not? Would anyone like to make one right now? So
I was
we're
trying to
not-
figure out what that,
like. There you go. Nice. That was well done. Like that.
Take the microphone.
We'll bring Danielle to the park and you'll have to, right, okay. And, but with that, I want to say, you have like a very narrow and odd kind of shaped site here. And I think we all agree, and you've heard it many ways, that the circulation, the flow of the spaces, the way the different activity areas link together, the way the north part relates to the more natural south part is really beautifully done.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll take a vote on roll call. Item number 29884, preliminary review of the reconstruction of Harding Park at Bolton Avenue and Gildersleeve Avenue in the Bronx. Commissioners, when I call your name, please state your vote. Ken Seth Armstead.
Approved.
Isabel Casilla.
Approved.
Lori Hawkinson.
Approved.
Bill Heinzen.
Approved.
Karen Keel.
Approved.
Carrie Maloney.
Approved.
Manuel Miranda. Oh, is he not? Did he have to? Okay, skipping Manuel Merrill Tisch.
Approved.
Jimmy Van Bramer.
Approved.
I also approve, so let the record show that the preliminary design for Harding Park is unanimously approved. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We have the team present, so we'll shortly move to the committee meeting portion.
Okay, all. Portion of our meeting, everyone? Yes.
Just
So-
one item.
But it's still public. We're-
Yes, there is.
Every remark will be on the record. We will now begin the committee meeting with the preliminary review of the reconstruction of the East River Playground at FDR Drive between 107th Drive and East 106th Street in Manhattan. We will not hear public testimony or vote on this project today. Presenters, you may begin. Welcome.
It was better. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Is that better? Okay, great. Okay, I'll just start again.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Canfer. I'm a landscape architect with New York City Parks. I'm really happy to be here today to share this exciting Community Parks Initiative project. East River Playground is a really important resource for the East Harlem neighborhood. Through Community Parks Initiative projects, we've seen regular investment in the neighborhood since the beginning, including earlier projects such as Playground 103, which is just a few blocks to the south. It's provided a really positive impact for the neighborhood. Of course. This is okay. Yeah, that's okay. Didn't want to block any of these. Okay, goals for the project include those typical for a playground reconstruction, including upgraded play, including multi-generational seating opportunities. We've also included this last goal here to reconfigure the site layout and circulation to provide an expanded area in advance of a future maintenance operations and public restroom building. Okay, so here we are in East Harlem neighborhood. The site is a jointly operated playground shared with the adjacent school, PS 146. This is also identified as a high heat vulnerability area and is within a tree planting priority zone. Okay, we're located in the 100-year floodplain. And there's no stormwater flood risk. However, future high tides may affect the site in 2080. Surrounding area includes multifamily residential and mixed use. And as you can see with this context walk map, the playground is the main playground use for the immediate neighborhood. And this is also a vital resource for maintenance and operations in the area. We also additionally have, it'll become more important as along the river here, we're seeing upgrades to the East River Esplanade and Pier 107. Okay, here's the existing conditions plan. The site has two main use areas. The right hand is the playground area. You see a central park house building. The left is a large asphalt multi-purpose play area with basketball and handball courts along East 106th Street. We have two entrances to the playground, and then also in the upper right corner, fenced in maintenance area with a separate access from FDR Drive and 107th here. Okay, site analysis. The play areas are generally hot and sunny with limited shade. Pavement is in poor condition. And also to note, I mentioned the central park house, which isn't very well located in the center of the playground area. It's currently dividing the play elements. Okay, we're also really lucky to have many nice mature shade trees, which will remain in the future design. There's a few site removals, and we'll also be planting many new trees, including 12 shade and 21 understory. Okay. So I'll walk through some site photos showing areas of the playground.
To the ones in the rest of Central Park is really stark. So it's a really important project that you're taking up. Good for you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. So here we're looking at East 106th Street. This is the view of the current playground entrance, that tall 7-foot fencing. This is the southeast corner, expansive pavement, and some in very poor condition along the FDR Drive road. We have nice views from within the playground, southeast towards Randall's Island and the footbridge. Okay, this is that existing park house building, which includes public restrooms and maintenance offices and facilities. Okay, views of the courts and the asphalt multipurpose use area. Okay, and this is a view north in the playground. We have that fenced-in maintenance area here. And then this is showing from the northeast that separate maintenance access. And so we're looking from FDR Drive west down 107th Drive. This is not a public thoroughfare, it's a private road. And so it provides access to some condominiums that are just north of the site. And so we have an access agreement to use this for maintenance use only. Okay, so we had some good community meetings with the community board and also the school. Everyone's really excited about the project, and we were able to incorporate their feedback into the design. And so this is the original schematic design, which was submitted to the commission. And we really appreciated some of your feedback that we recently received. We were able to use some of that feedback to help refine areas of the plan. This includes the swings area here and some of the seating around the multi-use area. Okay, so this is the revised schematic design. And so I'll walk through the design as an overview, and then we'll see areas in more detail in future slides. To begin, we're maintaining the access along East 106th Street here. Starting in the lower left corner, you enter through a 10-foot double gate into the renovated basketball courts with new bench seating. As we're moving up into the multi-use sports area, there's a perimeter walking track. Within that, we've striped for soccer, volleyball, and pickleball court use. There's there's painted games and a fun color seal coat pattern around for an alternative play route. So the left side of the playground, this area is closed during the school day for school use. And so we've maintained, we're providing a welcoming entrance in to the playground in the lower corner here, which maintains open to the public at that time. And so this area we've buffered with some nice new planting beds in the corner, new shade trees and understory trees. You enter just within, there's a multi-generational seating area with tables and bench seating. This curvilinear pathway with painted, a fun painted pattern leads through the site, connecting elements. And along the left edge, we have this connected play area with 5 to 12, water play 2 to 5, connecting up to the swings area, which we were able to restudy this area, refining the site circulation and also prioritizing play within the play area. And so we have this new play loop with the painted pattern around it, providing a direct connection between the play area and the swings, while still maintaining this 7-foot access pathway between the playground and the multi-use sports area. Also to note, we are showing the existing park house on the plan, as it will remain open with the new playground. We do have funding and a rough schedule for the future park house building project. It's not quite in design yet. And so you can see in the upper right portion of the plan, we are taking into consideration the area needed for this future project. And the next slide showing within the dashed orange line is the construction area, the anticipated construction area for that future project. And so there's been careful consideration between these projects to make sure the new playground is able to fully remain open during this future building construction project. Okay, here we see the existing fence diagram. Okay, and for proposed fencing, it includes lowering the perimeter fencing around the play areas for better sight lines. We're also lowering the fencing between the playground and multi-use sports area for a better visual connection, and remeshing and painting the sport court fencing. Okay, so zooming into the play areas, here we're showing the play and spray. You can see nice planting buffer around with bench seating then. Let's see. Okay. We were lucky to be able to provide some generous play areas for large play structures with a lot of variety of elements. Something important was to provide accessible ramping to allow users with different mobilities to kind of go through the equipment with a meaningful play loop, including a 4-foot slide at the end, sensory play elements, and there's a variety of different challenging climbing opportunities to the upper and lower levels. Okay, so here are 2 views of the 2 to 5 play equipment. Accessibility was also important here. In addition to providing quiet sensory play opportunities, the school includes classes for special needs students who have noise sensitivities. Okay, here are painted games and sensory play elements included in the design. There was a nice opportunity to include a painted graphic on the existing handball wall. Okay, and an exciting spray feature, including some more gentle ground sprays on the ends here, and then also these tall grass sprays with sprays that you can run through. So it provides a variety of play experiences. Okay, we're using standard site furnishings. This is the materials and color palette. Okay, and tree and shrub selections with year-round seasonal interest in mind. Okay, so here's a rendered sketch view of the playground entry and seating area. And a view from East 106th Street of that same entrance. You can see the lowered perimeter fencing and the welcoming open entrance with a view of the seating area as well. Okay. And through expanded planting areas, we were able to more than double the proposed permeability for the site, which was really great. And I'll end on the schematic design again, and I'm happy for any questions or comments.
Thank you. What a huge, huge improvement for this community. It's like amazing. Commissioners, any comments or recommendations for the next time?
Question, I think it's fantastic that this is happening. Just when I look at the footprint of the existing park house, and then when you show the new footprint of the new building, looks like they're not quite on top of each other.
That's fine.
So it's just a thought, I'm sure you've thought about this, that they're gonna have to tear that building down and there won't be any bathrooms. So if you push the building back, which maybe you don't want to do, I mean, it's just a lot of times projects, you want to try to keep that there as long as possible, tear it down when the other one comes, if at all possible. So that's just a thought to kind of.
I think that's a thought, but it's really tight there. That's the square feet of what we want to build, but not in that configuration, but we want, they want outdoor space for maintenance operations here, coming off of the exit rather than it behind a building. And then we kind of want to
Because you could
separate.
screen the FDR with the maintenance people, but I mean, just to
And
put the
generally,
two on
that's what we're
top
gonna
of
do.
each other would be useful.
That's something
I'm sure you've thought about it.
we
but-
can, yeah, we can think about it more. This is going to start design. So,
Right, great time.
so we'll think about it.
Yeah, great. Anyway, just a thought. Thanks.
So what's the schedule? Do you know the schedule?
Yeah, sure. So the construction for the playground is planned to start 2026. Or start 2025, no, 2026.
26.
26. And then the building timeline is just a couple of years behind that currently as it's planned to start construction. So this will be done in a year. So I guess it should be done summer of 2026.
We're working on making that timeline shorter. There's this big, after we finish design, there's procurement that's. No, it's a tough place. Yeah.
Good luck. So first I want to thank you for taking our comments and revisiting the plan. I think the circulation through the site is much more improved. The putting together the swing areas, I think optimizes the space and makes usability a little bit more straightforward. And I really like the idea of incorporating the playful patterns throughout, especially under the consideration that sometimes half of the site is closed and sometimes it's open. Is something that really kind of ties it together and encourages people to move through, and also kind of becomes yet another playful element. So I think all of that is very successful. Parting from Lori's comments on the maintenance building, one thing I would like you to keep in mind as you start working on the design is outlining enough area for a planted buffer that that screens that maintenance portion. When you were showing it without the TBD design, there were these little planting beds in front of the parking lot that I kept thinking, you want them to be bigger, you want them to screen, you don't want that maintenance and operation space to take away from the site. So just a thought for.
Yeah, we're already thinking about that.
Great. And I think you have enough space for that. The only area that I feel may still want a little bit of consideration is this spot right here. I know that there's obviously a need to separate the different play modes, and they're still successfully jointed should you have kids of different ages are moving across. But that pinch point that I'm assuming is driven by this existing tree and preserving its roots, along with the water feature there being something that could potentially spray over the path and have water carried over by the wind, creates that space to be too much of a pinch point between all of those things. So I don't know what the solution is, but I would urge you to think about it specifically on days where water may be on and kids may be playing in and out of the water feature. It kind of separates the spaces into two in a way that may not be desirable.
And another thing that I think contributes to making the space feel a little bit tight is the height of the planting protection on the narrower beds, specifically these. I think you mentioned those were like 3 feet. So because the beds are so narrow, when you look at the sketches that you did, what really stands out is that planting bed protection, almost like a crib around the planting, which I know is needed. Obviously, people cut these ire lines, but I wonder if there's a way to lower that and make it one of yours that's a little bit less dense with the vertical pickets. I think you have one that's lower and
Yeah, that should be
less
just the,
dense.
that should be the tree put size, I
Yeah.
think, at that.
And then I think that helps open these up a little bit more. And then I don't know what the solution is here, but thinking about that pinch point a little bit, also thinking that people are going to sit on those benches, have their feet out, and it all starts putting together too many things in one little corner.
One thing I should note, just this graphic hasn't been updated to completely match the plan, just related to the benches here.
Mhm.
Is as part of the design revision, we included play panel edge along here, maintaining it's a 3-foot
So there's more space.
concrete pad. Yeah, and so it gives a little bit more open space here without the need for the seating, but it's a play border. And this is about like a 6-foot kind of pass-through zone. I do hear what you're saying about it being a little bit tight. It's been challenging with these large tree roots that we're trying not to encroach on.
I mean, and the play panels, I think on the one hand, do occupy less space than the benches, but on the other hand, do encourage gathering around them. So I think that the bigger question is, we have so many different activities happening in such a little moment. Is there a way to give it some relief?
We can think.
Yeah.
about that.
So just quick summarize, when you return for review, there are kind of 3 things to look at. One is the giving a little breath to the buffer area around the maintenance building. The second is to think about this specific point, which I agree with, that it's could use a little more air, but I'm not really sure how to solve it, but you'll look at that, Rebecca. And then consider lowering the height of the fence, which we just talked about. But other than that, it's really progressed quite beautifully since we last saw it. Thank you for integrating our comments.
Sure, thank you very much.
Okay, and with that, this concludes our meeting for today, and the public meeting is now adjourned.